Hey everyone, thanks for coming back to the Not So Special Forces podcast. Today is very special. Today is episode number 2. I sit down with someone who I've known for a better part of 15 years. His name is Jeremiah Howe. He is a former U.S. Marine. And over the next couple of parts of this episode, Jeremiah is going to tell us an incredible story about someone who was unguided, someone who didn't truly know why he joined the Marine Corps. Jeremiah is going to tell us about failed marriages. He's going to tell us about war. He's going to speak to us about the brotherhood. He's going to speak to us about losses that he endured, losses that we all endured. He's going to speak to us about survival. He's going to speak to us about recovery. And he's going to speak to us about leadership. We have decided to break Jeremiah's episode into 3 parts. I feel that if we rush this, if we edited this, if we compress this story into something faster, something quicker for podcast expediency, something for, something for viewership to make the story be quicker, the episode quicker, it would be an incredible disservice, and we can't do that. We have Jeremiah tells us about some incredible people, and their stories, his story, they need to be preserved and they need to be told. So, for that, episode number 2, like I said, we're breaking down to 3 parts, and you guys really need to listen to all 3 parts. It's just incredible. So, that is it. We are feet wet. We are going to do this. Let's do this. Thanks, everyone. Jeremiah, welcome to the podcast. I am thrilled that you're here today, man. Thanks for joining us.
My brother, thanks. It's good to see you again. And
it's good to see you. It's been a few years, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
So listen, man, you and I have had a lot of conversations about getting you here today and the scope and the reason behind the podcast and the Miles Gregarius Foundation. You have an incredible journey of life. You have an incredible story of service, and it needs to be preserved and it needs to be told. You have experienced things that most people haven't. A lot of Marines haven't, and they will never. You have seen the cost of conflict. You've seen the cost of war. And we're drifting further away from the global war on terror and everything that led up to it, or after the start of the global war on terror. So having this conversation with you here today, sharing your experiences, remembering those that you lost, and just some of the crazy shit that you went through. That's what we want to talk about. I've known you for years. I don't think you and I have ever had a detailed conversation about anything the way that we're going to have here today. We spent a lot of time together up on the border up there up north. We've put a few beers back together. We've been on soccer fields together, ice arenas together, whatever. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, him and I have never really spoken about the shit. We've never really spoken about anything, man. So it's awesome that we're finally get to do this, and it's long overdue, man. So thanks.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, man. And when you told me what you were doing with the podcast, and I brought this up to my wife, I said it's really cool because you and I talked about and even in your intro, your inaugural video, talking about all the SOF and SOG guys that have these. And I live on podcasts. I mean, I love them. I love listening to their stories. Because they resonate with us, right? I mean, especially if you're a door kicker, if you're an infantry dude, we did some of the same shit that those guys did, but we look at those guys as like the varsity team. Those guys are legit. And when you told me what you were doing, I thought, you know what, that's a good freaking deal, because there's hundreds of thousands probably of regular dudes and gals out there that have really cool stories, and you're right, keeping this alive and honoring those other individuals that sacrifice the most, I think, is awesome. So thanks again.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure, man. It's a project that was burning in my heart for a while, and you and I noticed the same thing. We're like, every time someone's on TV, man, if they got some kind of freaking tab, but it's only barely 4%. We got 96% of the people out there that aren't being represented, man. So you're part of that 96%. So the guys you served with are part of that 96%. So yeah, so we're gonna keep it alive, man. Once this stuff hits the internet, it's there forever, man. People will be able to learn about them, and we can help that overshadowing. So, all right,
Yeah, right.
all right. So let's take it back to the beginning. Where are you from? Where you grew up? When you were born? Family? That type of thing.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in the late 70s. I was born in Oakwood Hospital in Dearborn, Michigan. My mom and dad were super young when I was born, and then shortly after, 3 years between me and my true blood brother that I have. I have many stepbrothers and half brothers, but um, they kind of went their separate ways. Things dissolved between the marriage, and somehow, I don't know how this happened, but somehow I ended up with my dad, and my younger brother Josh, he ended up staying with my mother. We moved over to the west side of the state, about 40 minutes north of Grand Rapids, in a small town called Morley. And when I say small town, I mean freaking blink and light, a bank, a party store, and a bar. That's pretty much it.
That's all you need.
And yeah, and I was recently back there. I drove through there maybe a few months ago for a work trip I had to do over to that side of the state, and it's the same. They added a couple party stores and a couple gas stations, but Morley is Morley. But yeah, so I ended up over there. I went through elementary school all the way to seventh grade, staying with my dad, and I would visit my mom in the summers down in the Metro Detroit area. She stayed down in this area. And then in eighth grade, for whatever reason, I don't remember if it was just staleness or what the case was, arguing with my dad. I moved down with my mom and stayed with her my eighth grade year. So by this point now, I've switched schools twice. And then for my freshman year, I don't know, something got back in me. I want to be back in the country. So this is city life down here. Let me get back to the country. So I go back to the country in my ninth grade freshman year, and it just wasn't the same. I just knew, like, I'm going nowhere up here, and the people are great in the town. It's a small town. I love it. But something inside of me was just telling me you got to get back down to different opportunities. So after my ninth grade year, I went back down and finished out down at my mom's. And I was thinking about it. I went to four different schools from the age of 13 to 18.
Jesus.
And yeah, and so, I talked to coworkers about it, and they're like, "Man, that's got to fuck you up." And I said, "No, you know what, man?" I said, "Honestly, it made me a better person." Totally different scenarios too. You go to, I mean, we're talking backwoods type school up north where my dad is, cornfields and everything else, down to city schools. And so it was a different type of people. And I don't know, I kind of came out of a shell. I became more personable, and I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest with you. So that's where I ended up. I graduated from Airport High School in 1995. The funny story about joining the military in the first place was in my
Well,
junior
hold on a
year.
second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hold on, man. Let's back up a little bit. So, your high school experience leading up to you wanting to join the military, were you an athletic stud at all? Any sports, any hockey, any football, any soccer, I mean wrestling? I mean, did you get in? Were you involved in any of that?
Yeah, I mean, from t-ball all the way through school, I played baseball, and then I was a dual sport athlete. I played football as well. Same thing. From
Okay,
whatever they call rocket football, where we were little, but 8, 9 years old all the way through. I wouldn't say I was a stud. I mean, I was athletic, but I've always been small. I come in at a towering 5'5", so you know. Uh, Speed was my friend. I didn't want to get hit in football, but I was naturally gifted at baseball. That was kind of my sport, and I just never pursued it far enough to make something of it. But yeah, as far as athletes, I got by. I hated
okay.
school.
Huh.
I did not enjoy school, which is kind of how I ended up in the military. But
Yeah.
the backstory to getting in the military though was my junior year. Uh, the recruiters, and I don't know if they still do this today, but they come around and they offer the ASVAB test to juniors and seniors in high school, which is it's awesome. I love it now that I know more about it. But at the time, I had no interest in joining the military. I didn't know what I was going to do. Uh, my mom had told me, "You can go to school anywhere you want," talking about college. but you have to live at home your freshman year, because they had made that mistake with my stepbrother. I think they wasted 20 some grand on University of Michigan. He was out there
Ah.
just getting hammered every night, never going to class. And she said, "No, we're not doing that shit again. So if you go to school anywhere you want, but your ass is living at home your freshman year." And during my junior year, her and I had kind of a falling out, and I ended up moving in with a buddy of mine. And it was only 3 miles across town from my house, but it was just, I was in an environment where I was kind of like lost. I didn't know what I was going to do. So a buddy of mine came to me and he said, "Hey man," he said, "you should take this ASVAB test." We were at school, and I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Oh, it's for the military." I said, "I'm not doing it, bullshit. I don't want to join the military." And he said, "Yeah, but you get out of class for 4 hours." I'm like, "Giddy up! I'll race you to the library, bro." So I ended up down in the library for this ASVAB test. Now,
It's like today's version of donating blood. You don't want to donate blood, but
yeah,
you can go down. A work sponsored blood drive. You're like, hell yeah,
right,
I'll go do it. Get you out
yeah,
of work for
yep,
a couple hours and get some cookies and hang out, man. You're like, hell yeah,
yeah,
I'm into that.
yeah, whatever to get out of it, right? So, and that's kind of what happened with me in the ASVAB. But remind you, I hated school, and I didn't hate actually physically being at school. I hated doing school. I had auto shop. I was kind of a gearhead in school, building motors and stuff. So that was cool. I liked that class. But when it came to math and stuff like that, bro, no, forget it. I mean,
Yeah.
I just didn't care. I didn't see it, whatever. So the ASVAB came up. I went down there, and I didn't know anything about the test. I didn't research it. This was like an on the spot thing. So when I went down to take the test, I had no idea what I was opening up the booklet. I didn't know. And of course, this is in 93, so we're on Scantrons. This is not on a computer. You get your little Scantron and your bubbles and your number two pencil, and you sit
Number
down.
two pencil.
Yeah, man. So I sit down and I opened up the first page, and I think the first section was math, and I looked and I, what the fuck? Dude, I looked at this and went, well, I don't know. Maybe I have to do this college thing because this is not going to work for me. But I devised a little plan within 30 seconds, bro. I said, you know what I'm going to do? All the sections that I don't know, because it's a multiple choice and it's a government test. So, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, man, there's only 4 answers. I can probably guess at most of these and nail a third of them. So I started
Yeah.
marking like C, D, B, C, D. And, but when I got,
Just had a little cadence going down the page.
yeah. So, and because you took the test and probably scored really
I
high.
took
You're a
no, I took
smart
it
dude.
twice.
So, well, there's a story about that too, about me not taking it twice. So, I, I do that. I go through the test, and I'm just blowing through this test, and then it gets to there's a mechanical section to it, and I'm like, oh, I can get down with this. And so then I started like, I know this, I know that, and I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some that I could answer in the different sections. But dude, when Johnny gets on a train in San Francisco and he's heading east at 200 miles, and I'm like, what? First of all,
almost word for word, I remember that one, man.
yeah, and I'm like, first of
You're
all,
scratching your head like distance,
yeah,
time, speed.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
60 seconds, a minute, 60
Yeah,
minutes an hour. I think I
yeah,
had to do some division here.
right. But me, the way my brain works, I'm like, what the fuck is Johnny doing in San Francisco anyway? We didn't even
Yeah.
answer that question. So whatever, I blew through the test, and fast forward to my senior year. It's actually summer going into our senior year. That same guy that talked to me about the ASVAB test, him and another guy, Chad and Brian, they both came to me and they're like, "Hey man, we're gonna join the delayed entry program down in the Marine Corps." And I'm like, "Really? For what are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing this, but you don't have to go to boot camp right away." And I thought, well, there's no really harm in that. So I sat down, and again, there's no
It's
internet,
when the
there's none of that.
brainwashing starts.
Oh yeah, 100%, right? So, but what I did immediately was, and I grew up again back to the Morley time when I was on the west side of the state, and dude, we grew up shooting each other with BB guns and playing army and war and stuff like that. So I was into that
Roman
kind of stuff.
candles.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, I got shot at by fireworks too. So I was into that kind of stuff. So for me, when I thought about the military and especially the Marine Corps, when I started thinking about it, I'm like, dude, my cousin's a Marine. That was my first introduction to it. The year prior, my cousin AJ had commissioned. He ended up being a Cobra pilot later after that. But So that was my first introduction to the Marine Corps. And I looked at the uniform, of course, the uniform, the dress blues. You're like, that shit looks cool. Well, then when I started thinking about it, I'm like, well, I'm way too dumb to fly anything, and nobody should trust me flying anything. So my idea of the military was I want to go shoot shit and blow shit up and hunt down bad dudes.
There you
So
go.
so I'm like, dude, infantry, it's easy. So this is 100% true story. I get on the phone. So before I go to the delayed entry, before I go to the recruiter's office, I said, well, I'm going to call these guys. Because these two buddies of mine, I'm like, yeah, slow down, gents. Let's call some people first. Well, I called the recruiter's office, and I'll never forget how this phone call went. The phone rings, and the recruiters, he answers, he says, Marine, Staff Sergeant Ventron, how can I help you, sir, man? And I said, hey, my name's Jeremy Howe. I want to join the Marines and I want to go infantry active duty. And he said, immediately, he goes, hold on, stud. So he goes, you got to,
Slow
yeah,
your roll.
yeah. He goes, you got to come down to the office. We gotta talk in person. And he says, can you, and this is like on a Thursday or Friday. He says, can you be here tomorrow on a Saturday? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I drive down to the Monroe
Yeah, but you know as
recruiting
well as
office.
I do, a recruiter getting a phone call like that is excited as shit because he's looking up at his quota board and he's like, "Good,
Oh
I
yeah.
got, I got one more. I got to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
that guy in." So he's
Yeah.
thrilled to get a phone call like that.
Well, and especially in the this is 2 years removed from Desert Storm, 3 years removed from Desert Storm and Shield. So a lot of those guys had gotten out, and so we're in kind of but they're still in a lull in the forces. But he confirmed that later, after I went down there and talked to him for sure. They needed people, they needed numbers. I think back then they had to write two a month or something like that. But so I go down there the next day and I meet with Staff Sergeant Ventrone, nice dude. He sits me down, and any of those that are watching this that have joined the Marine Corps, I don't know how it is with the other forces, but they set you down at the table and they put the plaques down on there, and you got to rearrange them, what's your priorities and whatnot. And I'm looking at these plaques, and it's travel and experience and adventure and excitement and all this. I'm like, there's no blowing shit up, shooting shit, throwing grenades, none of that exists. But so in the process of this conversation, he says, well, let me ask you something, man. Have you ever taken the ASVAB? And I go, I have. And he says, well, what school did you go to? And I said, I'm at Airport High School. So he disappears into this little room to our right, and he gets in a filing cabinet, and I hear him shuffling papers. He says, how do you spell your last name? So I tell him. He holds this piece of paper up in his hand in front of me. He goes, whoa, we're going to want to retake this. And I said, is it bad? And he goes, well, I mean, you passed. And I said, well, what do you need to get in the infantry? He goes, 31. You just have to pass. I said, what'd I get? And he goes, 33. I said, I don't need to retake it. So, and that's a true fucking story, bro. I never retook that thing with a 33.
Yeah, good.
Um, but yeah, so that's how and I entered the delayed entry program. I contracted 0311, which is a basic rifleman. And then, I wanted to take the whole summer off. That was I had a high school girlfriend, mistake, one of many. But I didn't want to leave right away, and they weren't pressing me to leave right away. And the other thing that encouraged that was he said, you can get a guaranteed E2 PFC out of this deal if you guys all go together on the buddy program. And so I looked at Chad and Brian, and I'm like, what do you guys think? They're like, fuck yeah, that'd be
What's up,
awesome going
buddies?
to boot camp. Yeah,
We're
going to boot
buddies.
camp together. You're right, yeah. Well, it turned out it wasn't the greatest idea, but in our minds, it was amazing idea. But yeah, so that's how I ended up in the Marine Corps. That's the beginning story of how I,
Now,
as
did
a
you have
high
any
school,
fathers, brothers? I mean, you said you had was it the cousin or the uncle that was a Cobra pilot, Cobra driver?
my
I mean,
cousin
did you have,
AJ.
okay, all right. So there wasn't any kind of like historical familial ties to like, hey, grandpa did this, dad did this, brother did this, you're doing this.
So not in the Marine Corps. My uncle, my dad's brother, was in the Navy. He had been stationed down in Jacksonville for quite some time, and he got out. Um, my dad was in the Army for a little bit. He got
Okay.
out. My grandpa was in the Army
All right.
during World
So,
War II.
yeah, so your family's got that legacy of service. So
Yeah,
it
sure. Yeah.
wasn't, it wasn't anything that was, it wasn't anything that was like a surprise to anyone, right? It wasn't anything that was a shock. It was just like, yeah, the house do that. The house serve. Jeremiah's serving.
Well, to my mom, it was.
Hmm.
And The guy she remarried, who was my stepdad at the time when I enlisted, Jim, he was in the Navy in the 50s on submarines. So for him, he was like, yeah, it's cool, military's good for you. My mom was not pleased. She was being a mom. She's like, I don't think this is a good idea, and you should go to college. And I'm like, Mom, I fucking hate school. I'm gonna waste your money. I guarantee you. I'm helping you here. And of course, we weren't that close at that time either because of the falling out from the year before. But so it wasn't that big of a deal. Um, and to be honest with you, I wasn't that close with my dad at that time either. So this was kind
Mm.
of like a perfect thing for me. And later, as I got through, 20 years of Marine Corps service, I started noticing a trend in the Marine Corps, especially in the infantry units, was, hey, a lot of people aren't really close with their families. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them. It's kind of a thing.
All right, so graduate high school, spent a year on the delayed entry program. You got a couple buddies on the buddy program you're going to be going into. Where'd you go to boot camp?
Paris Island, October 2nd, 1995.
How'd you fare? How was it?
Um, you know, I went into it with the attitude we had good recruiters. I will say that. Staff Sergeant Ventrone and Sergeant Shiflett. I'll never forget those two.
We never
They
do.
prepare. Yeah, and, being in the delayed entry program for an entire year, bro. We went to boot camp. We knew how to march or drill. We knew every single one of our general orders like the back of our hand. We knew every single rank structure from both the Marine Corps and the Navy, hand all the way up the chain. Um, so we had a decent head start. And Staff Sergeant Ventrone told us before we left, when he took us to MEPS and we did our final deal and we were getting ready to leave the next morning, he said, hey, he said, I'm only going to give you one piece of advice. He goes, you guys are going to be fine, but don't quit. And I said, okay. I mean, I can do that.
DFQ, don't fucking quit.
Yeah, man. So we got there, and between myself and Brian, we were both of our last names started with H, so we were close in rack space and things that had, how boot camp goes, you kind of get paired up with things like that. But then Chad, his last name started with an S, so he was kind of on his own program down at the other end of the squad bay most of the time. So Brian and I spent most of our time getting destroyed together, and then we would watch Chad go after us. But it was pretty rough.
Yeah, looking back at my boot camp experience, I went to boot camp out in San Diego, and yeah, man, it was a culture shock, right? I mean, I grew up in suburban Detroit, born in New York, grew up in suburban Detroit, and then it's a culture shock, man. I mean, it's like the first time you ever meet someone, who's missing half his teeth from Alabama. And then next to him, you got a guy from Puerto Rico, next
Yeah,
to him, you got a guy from Washington, and just every different race, every different background and all that. I think that was one of my takeaways, man, was just, because I'm living in suburban Detroit, got a whole bunch of Arabs, got a whole bunch of black people, got a whole bunch of white people, got Asian people. It's a pretty good, culturally diverse area, man.
yeah,
Nothing's as diverse as a Marine Corps squad bay, man. I don't care what anyone says, man. They talk about
yeah.
diversity, it's in those Marine Corps freaking boot camp squad bays, man. So I think that was looking back, that was one of the biggest takeaways for me, man.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and anybody that's
And we
been
were all
to,
and we were all equally worthless. We were all equally,
that,
you know, able to get yelled at, screamed at, bent,
yeah,
and just
yeah,
we were all suffering in the suck together, man. It didn't matter who or where we were from or anything, man. It was looking back, that was pretty cool.
yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say too. It didn't matter; everybody sucked at the same time. So, but yeah, I mean, boot camp was boot camp. It's tough. I mean, Marine Corps boot camp is hard. It's meant to be hard, and I was glad that it was hard, and the feeling that you get at the end. Now, I went before they have the new thing called the Crucible,
Yeah.
which later on in my career, I was an instructor at the School of Infantry, and we had to go back down and watch the Crucible, so we understood what that the 54-hour thing was and whatnot.
I
But
remember the first time I saw a clip of it, man. It was some social media post. I mean, whatever. I don't even remember when it started, right? The Crucible, but I remember seeing a drill instructor take his smoky off, man, and put it on his knee and have a conversation with the recruits, and that blew
yeah,
my mind. I'm like, that shit didn't happen when I was in, man. I mean, I
yeah,
don't care what. I mean, you and I remember, right? Like the only time you ever saw a drill instructor without a smoky on, man, was when they're doing the O course. or
Yep.
something, But other than that, when I saw him take that smoke off, I put it on his knee and like sit down and have a normal conversation with the recruits. I'm like, what the fuck is going on with my Marine Corps, man? That ain't right. That's not right.
Yeah, and I think every generation is like that. And the longer you stay in the military in general, but the Marine Corps, you see these changes, and it's really easy to fall into that. And I know when I got to the higher ranks, I got a little bit more wiser about those things of, hey, this is how things are going. This is what it's changing to in the why. Why is it happening? And going down there and seeing it firsthand experience, and it was right after it started. This was 98, so it was right after the Crucible had begun. I think they had been through maybe two series of boot camp of the Crucible, and we got to see it, and we all had our personal opinions, like, oh, that's not how it works. But you kind of start to see what they're doing. um and there were nuances of changes. It was small things. The biggest thing that I think I took away from it was how different it was from you and I. We didn't become Marines until they dismissed us on the parade deck on graduation day. That's when you
Right.
became a Marine. Now it's 2 days
And that's all we
before
do. I mean,
graduation. Yeah,
that is all guys like you and I and everyone before us went. So when I saw
yeah,
that transition happen, when these guys were earning their Eagle Globe and Anchor before that moment, I was like,
yeah,
eh. I mean,
yeah.
at the time it seemed like cringy, like they were giving something away, even though they just went through this, 50, 60 plus hour, you know, a scaled down hell week with mentoring.
Right.
It just, to me, I was like, that's not how that happens. That's not,
Yeah.
you're not
Yep.
supposed to be doing that.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to get out of our old ways, and understand what they were doing. They had a purpose for it. The Marine Corps did, obviously, but again, things change. Things are even changing today. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have scout sniper platoons and battalions anymore. We don't have tanks anymore. But it's just how it goes. But yeah, boot camp was good. Graduated December 22nd in 1995. Went on my traditional customary 10 days leave, came back to Michigan. It's cold. I'm going from Parris Island, South Carolina. It wasn't blazing heat down there at the time. It was in the 50s, I think, but I'm coming back to 20 degrees and snow, and I'm like, this sucks.
It
Um,
does. It sucks.
yeah, spent my 10 days back home, saw a couple of friends. Didn't really spend a lot of time doing much. I was just excited. I want to get back down to School of Infantry at Camp Geiger in North Carolina, and I started back down there in January at ITB, Infantry Training Battalion.
Yeah. So 0311, graduated boot camp. You now remind me, MCT. Did you guys have to go through MCT being an 0311?
Yeah. So, and what
Marine
happened
combat
to me
training?
was, so I contracted 0311, and then anybody that went, it was kind of an open contract, but open contract 0311.
Okay.
So that means, for at that time anyway, when you graduated boot camp, they gave you an individual infantry designator. Now for me, I got to graduation, and they, before the night before graduation, they set you down in the squad bay, left hand, left hand, left knee, right knee, get out of the way now. And they're reading off all the things, and they said, how 0341. What the fuck is an 0341? And the drill instructor looked, and he noticed that I had a look of confusion on my face. He goes, you know what that is, idiot? I go, sir, no, sir. And he goes, mortarman. He goes, those things weigh about 40 pounds. So good luck, knees.
Good luck.
And I'm like, good luck, knees. What the hell? So,
Man, I mean,
um,
just the way we were spoken to back then, right? I
oh,
mean,
yeah,
just what an incredible memories, right? I
I
mean,
know.
there's so many times I would just love to be able, especially when you get into positions of leadership, it would just be so relieving sometimes. Just be like, what are you talking about, you idiot? Or just like,
Oh,
hey, idiot, you look confused, but
bro,
you throttle back and you're like, you can't do that.
yeah, you know
But
me well
looking
enough.
back, it was fantastic.
I don't have a filter, so I just keep
Oh,
rolling
no.
with
All
it.
right.
I get the hey, you can't say that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
Roger that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we 0341. So I go home, come back, I check into Alpha Company at ITB, and yeah, during that time you had to go through, it was about 17 to 18 days of MCT with everybody, and then you split off into your individual infantry training battalion, and then the
Yeah.
MCT folks went on to
MCT
their
was
schools.
MCT was new when I joined. I got a couple of years on you, and I think we were like this. Maybe it was first month or two of it. And I
Yeah.
remember, I think his name was Hake or Ake. Ake was his name, but it wasn't like belly ache. It was like like a German ache. And
Hmm.
I just remember a whole bunch of lance corporals and corporals running around, and they're all kind of scratching their heads, wondering what the hell are we supposed to do with these guys, man. So I just
Right.
remember, Camp San Onofre marching around, and like we haven't really learned anything. And it just seemed like it was too new of a process. And some of the instructors there, they're all good guys. I mean, we all PT'd and freaking you know, drank beer in the Quonset huts at night, or stayed on base because they didn't want us going to Tijuana to drink there. But I mean, it just seemed like it was a new process back then. It wasn't really that of a honed
Yeah.
school at that time.
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, just from what you're telling me, and I remember those because, 90, this is 96 now, so we're probably 4 years apart in our.
I went through in '91.
Yeah, so, you're back behind me a few years, and I remember those stories from some of those guys, but it was pretty well developed. What at the time what they had is they had a lot of these guys that were coming out of the fleet, and this actually happened to me some years later. I ended up back over there as an instructor. But these are guys that came from the fleet that didn't have enough time left on their contract, so they get sent over as almost kind of like a TDY, to go over there, and so all the ITB guys were infantry guys. So you're stuck in a mortar section, and it's all mortar guys from the fleet, and they came over to teach. So I had a really good experience. It's scaled down boot camp. If you remember, I mean, we were still getting our asses chewed. We're pieces of shit and everything else because we're just PFCs and lance corporals, and these guys are corporals and sergeants. So they had been around the proverbial block, which was nothing more than 3 years of being in the Marine Corps, and then after you're in the Marine Corps for a while, you realize, hold on a second, these guys are like terminal lance corporals, like salty, like fuck the Marine Corps type guys, and you realize like they did not send their best.
No.
But we had a good time and we learned. I mean, we learned the craft. And actually I actually learned a lot by the time I got to the fleet after those 3 months of ITB. I felt really well prepared. And when we got to the fleet,
Well, let me
um,
interrupt you. So
yeah.
when was it when you were learning the trade craft of dropping rounds on target out of a mortar tube? Was it
Well, so
during ITB? Did they break you off? Because I didn't go through
yeah,
ITB. I
yep,
was a radio operator, went out to 29 Palms, and I eventually lat moved to the Legacy KC 130 community. So I never had that type of combat arms training.
yeah,
It wasn't until I got to the MEU where we started doing the workups. Then they're like, then I started hanging out and started running ops with with the Marine Assault Force, with the Air Assault Force, with the boats. I mean, whoever. That's when I got into that training. But prior up to it, I didn't have any of that. I had a couple weeks of MCT, and that was it. And then it was off
right.
to stumps to learn how to hump a radio and talk to people.
Yeah, no, it was so, like you said, that everybody's hitting that MCT part, and that MCT part was all the basic fundamentals of being a rifleman. And that's how the Marine Corps operates. Every Marine is a rifleman. It doesn't
Wedge
matter if you're,
formation,
yeah,
echelon.
exactly.
All
Yep,
right.
yep. So you're doing defenses, you're doing direct actions, you're doing
I'm up, he
patrolling.
sees me, I'm down. I'm up, he sees me, I'm
Yeah.
down. I'm up, he
Yes,
sees me,
sir.
I'm down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I
And
mean, and
yelling
that's
Bangalot.
exactly. So, you're doing all that stuff for that 20-day period or whatever, and then you branch off into your individuals. So, it's funny because a lot of my closer friends from boot camp that had carried on right to SOI with me. Now, my two buddies that I went on the buddy program with, one of them was what was the ESB engineer sport battalion guy. So he drove like loaders and trams and stuff, and I can't remember what the other guy. Either way, neither one of them were infantry guys. So they got through their 20 days of MCT and they go off into their schools. And I always felt bad for the 0311 guys at first. This is kind of when I started to cherish being an 0341. Good luck knees. Um, when we were doing all the I'm up, they see me, I'm down, and just it's just brutal. I mean, it's brutal, and I'm just like, oh my god. Well, then we get done with that 20 some days or whatever. Those guys go off and keep doing that. They're just like road marching themselves to death. And we're over here loading up 81 millimeter mortars in the backs of Humvees and stuff. And I'm like, oh
They
yeah,
didn't
this
even
is the life
realize it
song.
yet. They're in the Marine Corps for less than a year, and they're already working at that VA rating.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, um, So at that point in time, right before we got cut off into our individual sections, so the 31s, the machine gunners, the 51s, the assaultmen, the 52s, when they had 52s, the tow gunners, and then 41s. And so we all split up. But right before that happened, so now I'm super motivated, right? I'm like, fuck, I should have went 0311, man. Those guys I'm gonna be sitting, a mile behind the freaking lines. I want to be up on so I started having a little bit of regrets and like, well, it wasn't my fault, but. So they had the recon guys came over because I don't know if they did this when you guys were in, but right before you branch off, they have these dudes come over and they're trying to recruit for Indoc. And I was like, ooh, I want to do that, and so they come over and some guys with bubbles on their camis, and they're like, you're looking at them like they're gods and whatnot. These are like corporals.
Yeah, we didn't have
And
anything like that. We didn't have any kind of force recon recruiting or feeling up at the time. If and I might be mistaken if I got any guys that I served with to call me out on it. It's been a long time. I remember an Anglico guy coming in, explaining Anglico and telling us to be on the lookout for it when we hit the fleet because they wanted comm guys, they needed comm guys, and
yeah,
that is the only type of surveillance, reconnaissance, intelligence group type of conversation, or it wasn't even recruiting. I think I just remember like a sergeant or a staff sergeant coming in. He had his jump wings on, and he was like, "Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do, and hope to see you in the
right.
fleet one day." So
Yeah, and maybe it was just an infantry thing. I mean, maybe they hit all the ITB guys. It's a check in the box. They come over and it's the same thing like at work. With us, with some of those people that come in and talk to you and hey, this is what we do. If you're interested after you get done through your training, come see us.
right,
But at this point in time, they came in and they were signing people up to go take the indoc that Saturday. And so they came in and, they were like, hey, anybody interested in coming to recon? So, I know 15, 20 of us put our hands up. I'm like, fuck yeah. Put my hand up and they're like, if you're an 0341, put your hand down. I'm like, oh, that was easy. And he's like, we're not
well, there
taking
goes that.
41s. We're not taking mortarmen. And I'm like, son of a bitch. The hits just keep coming. But later on, when I got to the fleet, I had an opportunity to go down and do the NDOC for it and whatnot too. So
And has that changed now with MARSOC? Are those guys taking anybody?
as far as I know, it's not a thing anymore.
Okay.
They've moved all that. Now, I'm not 100% on that. Some guys that are still in could probably same thing. They could correct us on this. But with the MARSOC thing, it's just like the Scout Snipers. They removed them as a battalion asset and moved that out to MARSOC as well. So, and I have mixed feelings about it, but it is what it is. It's a change,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I finished up. I graduated SOI on my birthday on March 8th. And same thing, we didn't know where we were going. The day before graduation, they had orders, and that was back when they had the scan printed ones with the little perforation paper
Yeah,
on them.
yeah.
So they came down, and just like our LESs used to be on, so they came down and they didn't even read them off. They just
Would have
handed
tripped
them.
out memory lane, man.
I
ASVAB,
know,
LESs, the
crazy.
dot matrix printers telling you they got a no
Yeah,
pay due coming. You're like, fuck.
exactly, exactly. We overpaid you. Sorry, dude. No, we're going to take all of it out of your next check. Sorry about that as well. But no, so they didn't even tell us what we were doing. They just call your name. How? Here, Corporal. You run up, and I grabbed my orders, and I looked. It said V12, and I looked around. And there was about 8 other dudes in my ITB class that were going. Victor 12, and I'm like, what is Victor 12? And it's like First Battalion, Second Marines, moron. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, where's that? They're like, it's at Camp Lejeune. What are you, stupid? And I'm like, oh, sweet. So I'm not going West Coast. And they're like, and they just shake their head and they're like, oh,
If it's got
good
an
luck.
even number, it's on the West Coast. If it's got an even number,
Right.
it's on the East Coast. If it's
Yeah.
got an odd number, it's on the West Coast. Dumbass.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that
Now
just
you're going
carries with
back
you.
to
And then forget about Okinawa. I mean, forget about
yeah,
that. That doesn't count, right?
yeah,
But
in Hawaii and everything.
yeah,
Yeah. So you're not Third Marines. No, you're going first regiment or second regiment. Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, and,
And you never
you know,
forget it.
yeah, and so it was typical. We got trucked over there because it's right across the New River. So we get over there, and you get dumped off in the parking lot, and you got
You
all
guys
these
didn't stop off
corporals.
the shipwreck or Toby's or anything like that?
No, 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 no. We sure
Okay.
didn't. So
It's
we
another
or
podcast topic.
or the driftwood,
Yeah.
which is still there. It's just a different name. So Yeah, they dropped us off in the parking lot, and here come the corporals and sergeants, and you're right back to being a piece of shit again.
Another
And it's like,
moron.
oh,
Another moron
yeah,
checking in.
yeah, here we
Another
go.
boot
Get
fuck
your
moron.
shit. Get in formation now. I was like, oh my god. So, and I got assigned to a weapons company. So some of my buddies went to the line company in 60 millimeter mortars, and they were basically riflemen carrying around heavier gear. That's all it was. And I ended up in 81's platoon. I was on the gun line for about 6 months, and then my platoon sergeant, Gunny Frank Keenest, great dude, still lives down in Havelock, North Carolina, I believe. But he,
It's my old stomping ground, Havelock.
yeah, so he asked me. He said, well, first thing he said was, "How tall are you?" I said, 5'5", Gunny. He's like, "Jesus, okay." Can you hump? Talking about hiking. And I said, yes, I can, Gunny. And he's like, can you keep up? Probably not with those short ass legs, but I'm going to give you a radio and you're going to become a forward observer. And I'm like, okay. But to me at the time, I thought that was kind of cool because some of the more senior dudes were going over and being forward observers, and you had to have some experience. And I was pretty good on the gun. I don't know how much you know about mortars, but leveling up the bubbles, and I was
Only
getting pretty good at it.
only what I see on TV, man.
Yeah, and it was just what it was a finesse of the dials is all it was, and you got two levels just like a regular level you would use in construction
I
site.
remember seeing that. I mean, I'm not ignorant to everything in the Marine Corps, man. I'm just saying I'm
Sure.
not going to claim ownership to information that I've nothing, no ideas
Yeah, yeah,
about, man. But
yeah.
I think one of the workups we were at, it might not even have been a workup. I think it might have been later on. I think we were out in the deserts of Israel, like in Zalim or somewhere. One of the med floats I was on, and I remember being around them, and I remember seeing those aiming stakes, like
Yeah.
the
The
stakes you
candy
guys would,
cane.
yeah,
Yep.
and the stakes they'd stick out in the ground,
Yep.
and the guys were looking in their little sights and they were dialing shit, and I'm like, and I remember scratching my head thinking, the enemy's way out there,
Right.
but you guys have your sights on those candy cane looking things, and the
Yeah,
guy's
man.
like, yup. I'm like, all right, and it was just another example of getting your respect up for the combat arms, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not all just humping a gun, seeing something move and shooting them, right?
Correct. Yeah.
There's so much, like, and I don't want to get off track, but I remember when the digital communication terminals came in. It was like a brand new thing, man.
Yeah.
And we're all scratching our heads like, what is this? Oh, all these red dots. You put a lat long in here. I'm like, well, where are we getting the lat long from? And they're like, from this. And they give you this big green box. And it was the first ever time I saw a GPS unit. The thing was
Yep.
big, it was green, it was heavy, it had like an antenna on top and had an on-off switch on it. And it just said, it had like an 8-digit, 12-digit grid on top, a lat long, and you're like, all right. I mean, no training or anything. There's like, here's a new GPS unit. This tells you where you're at. And you're like, I
Yeah.
don't have to look at the map anymore. They're like, no, dumbass, use that. I'm like, I don't have to get a little piece of string out and put on top of a map to figure. No, dumbass, use that. Oh, and
Yeah.
by the way, here's an external tenor. You can put this on top of your Kevlar for better reception. And you're like, that can't be healthy, But anyway, it's just so as looking back at the technology, and you were just little tiny red dots, man. It looked like those old uh, that football game, with the red dots moving the red
Oh
dots
yeah.
around,
Yeah. Yeah.
back in the
Yeah.
day. And then,
Yep.
but looking back, and we were dumbfounded by that technology then, right? Because
Yeah.
SATCOM didn't even. When I first went in, there was no SATCOM. That was like new after my, anyway. But then seeing what the combat arms guys are dealing with now, there's no dummies in the grunts anymore. I'm going to take that back. Of course, they got your dumbasses,
Right. Right.
but
Yeah.
I mean, these guys it's incredible the amount of technology, man. The lasers, the communications, the
Hmm.
SATCOM, the weapon targeting systems they have, and all that.
Yeah.
You can't be a dummy operating that shit. It's just
Yeah.
amazing.
No. And
So
yeah. And
seeing
that
it
was the thing.
from those sticks and dial into the sites to where we're at today, it's just mind boggling, man.
Yeah.
And it's
When
way more lethal too. Way more lethal.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't, for people that are watching and stuff, you see those. you see the out plotting road commission crews, and they got the little tripod set up, and they got that thing.
Hmm.
So aiming circle, what it was called an aiming circle, and the platoon sergeant would lay in the gun line with the aiming circle, and then we lay in the guns by the stakes. So once the gun line's laid in, then the stakes get laid in. And it's based on math, of course. And that's the irony of it is, there was so I'm sitting
There's no
here
A,
going
B, C,
like,
or D there on the gun line.
exactly. And I'm like, hey man, this ain't fucking multiple choice. So best to put me on the gun line and not in the FDC, the Fire Direction Center, which was where the more smarter 0341 sat with their plotting boards. And those were the guys back there now that are plotting those gun missions based on deflections and elevations. They're converting them. They're converting that stuff based on those numbers. And that's all coming through the radio communication from the actual 0311s that are forward, and they're giving you, an 8-digit grid where they want that round to drop or where they think it needs to be dropped, and then that comes back to the FDC, and it all gets computed, or the forward observer. So I really took a lot of interest in the forward observation aspect of it, and the irony of it is there's a lot of geometry. That was like, and that was when I really realized like the application, like self application, applying yourself because this shit matters. If I get this wrong and the gun line, and the FDC's there to correct you, and there's safeties built in, but they could fuck up too. And now you're dropping rounds on your buddies, and so that I took it really seriously, and I took a lot of passion in the forward observing thing, and so then I got attached out to the line companies, and I was rolling in kind of like a small group, and you would be forward of that company, and now it's kind of like little Ricky Recon stuff. So you felt really cool, and that's where I started to really learn land navigation for real. Resections, I mean everything. I started to learn a lot about comms, about sloping V's, and all the stuff because if I don't have what's the point? I can't get the information to the gun line. So that was one of the things that I took a lot of pride in, the forward observation portion. Um, so yeah, and that's what I kept doing up until the following year, '97, when we got spun up for the 2-2 Mu, and 81 millimeter mortar platoon. When you go on the Mu, their primary mission is the trap, is the tactical recovery of air personnel.
Very familiar.
Yeah, can we take a leak break?
Yeah, man, let's do that because. All right, everyone, we are back from the break. We are continuing our talk with Jeremiah Howe, Marine Corps veteran, mortarman, found his groove in the Fleet Marine Force as a mortarman. He became a forward observer. And what happens next? Deployments. The inevitable, the deployments.
Yeah, right. So 1-2 was in the rotation to pick up the Mu. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure we turned over with 6th Marines, if I remember correctly. But we we didn't think that we were going anywhere out of turn. This would have been spring of '97. I want to say April, somewhere around March or April. We were getting ready to go on our block leave. It's pretty traditional. You get 10, 12, 14 days, whatever, a block leave before you go on a 6-month deployment, whether you're going into the Med or out to Okinawa. And we got called for a battalion formation, and there was rumors that something was going on the west side of Africa, and we might end up leaving early. We were getting that rumor mill down. The sergeants were talking about it. The platoon sergeant was talking about it. So we get called to battalion formation.
I mean, there's no
And
rumor about it, man. I mean, shit kicked off in West Africa, with that first NEO operation in Liberia, I think with the USS Wasp in like 1990, 1991. And we had a presence there ever since because I spent the majority of the 1990s, in some fuck country in Western Africa, whether it be, Liberia, Sierra Leone, down in Angola, the Congo, Rwanda, then we had Somalia.
right.
Kick off during the early '90s. So if people were saying that there was a rumor of shit kicking off in Africa, shit was kicking off in Africa the entire 1990s, man. So there's no rumors about
Yeah,
it. It's already kicked off.
yeah. I guess what I mean is there was rumors that we were going to be leaving early, is what I meant to say. So
Okay.
so we get called to a battalion formation. It was right after lunch chow. We all get in the quad area of First Battalion, Second Marines, and our battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Greenwood, he comes out and his call sign was Sledgehammer Six, and he was like this old, hunched over dude that. But I'll tell you what, man, during the workups, I don't know, I don't know what you experienced with your MOS, but in the Marine Corps infantry, when you're working up, all you're doing is hiking, and you're doing all these McCrest standards. You got to hit all these wickets,
Yep.
and one of them was
It was
like
the
a
same thing with us at the
24 mile.
command element with the with my time with the Mule when I did those 3 floats. It was the same thing.
Yeah,
Everyone, we had observers, we had guys who've done it. I think it was the first time I ever heard that a term that I absolutely hate, even to this day, is a subject matter experts. The guys that were watching. They had do not engage. They were there to observe, make sure we're doing everything for the right reasons, setting up correctly.
right.
So we had the same, standards we had to meet in order to earn that special operations capable tab or marker for the Mule, in order for us to be deployed. And I was with the
Right.
S6 platoon with the command element, so we were spread out all over. We had guys with the air wing, we had guys with the grunts, we had guys with dipping in out of force, we had guys dipping out of everyone, man. The track units, the Amtraks, everything, man. And so I think when we're doing the Mule workups, especially when you go out to sea for a couple of weeks and you come back and you attack a fake country, which is like Georgia, Camp
Yeah.
Landing or something in Florida,
Yep.
whatever it is. I think our experiences, even though mine was prior, because you said this was what, 97?
Yeah, April '97. Well,
Yeah,
March of '97.
yeah, I was well into the air wing at that time, and then I didn't know it at the time, but my career was winding down because I got out, a year and a half after this was happening for you. But I think our experiences during the workup, even though there was a separation of time, I still think they kept that marker, of having to achieve excellence before you were able to get signed off. And hey, these guys are deployable. Send them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the same thing then. And obviously MOS is, the check marks are different, the benchmarks and the things that you have to hit. But infantry guys, you're out there. We're freaking hiking. One week we're doing 8 miles, then we're doing 12, then we're doing 16, then we're doing 22, and fucking one night we left at like 11 o'clock at night for a 26-mile hike because it was going to end at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh, but thank God we did because of the heat and everything. But anyway, we get called to the battalion formation, and Lieutenant Colonel Greenwood, he's out there. He's like, "There's some rumor that 1-2's leaving early. Does Sledgehammer Six think that's so?" No. And he fucking left the following Monday. And
Hey, fuck that up.
yeah, and it's like, bro, come on, man. So, but I was a young lance corporal. Uh, I had a 1 year old with that same high school sweetheart. And so it was like, oh shit, and we're living out in town. We weren't even living on base housing yet.
Gotta get
Because we
that
were waiting
sweet
on,
BEQ.
yeah, we're waiting on that 400 square foot rat infested house over there at Midway Park. So, but it was, hey, you got to go back home. We're leaving early. I got 4 days off, and we were down at whatever port we get on the boat at. I forgot now. It's North Carolina. But anyway, we
The
get on the
Morehead
boat.
City.
Yeah, Morehead City. Thank you. So we get on the boat. I'm on the Kearsarge, and so for anybody that's listening, this is 1997. The Kearsarge. We were its second voyage. The first voyage, for those that remember, was '93. Captain Scott O'Grady, the Air Force
Yep.
pilot that was shot down in Bosnia. And it was the 81 millimeter mortar platoon, that the trap platoon that went in and secured that site to bring him out. I think some SOC guys did it, but
Yeah, it was
81's.
when I was a member of the trap team, man. When I was at the Mule, and we had everything going on in the Adriatic at that time with Bosnia Herzegovina, and we're just cutting gator squares for months at a time,
Yeah.
sitting on watch, sitting on your rucksack on the fuck they call it, on the not the flight deck, but the
No,
hangar deck, on the
the
hangar
ramp.
deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the hangar deck. You're just sitting there on your
Yep.
backpack, just waiting and
Yep.
waiting and waiting and
Yeah.
waiting. So yeah,
Yeah.
very
And
familiar
so
with that
that,
experience.
yeah. So we had that. So in my platoon, it was broken down. We had the search and rescue team, and then we had the security team, and I got assigned to the security team with a 240 Golf. So again, here we are. When I say towering, I mean I'm like hitting the 5'5" mark on the nose. I'm probably 5'4" now after all those years in the infantry, but bro, like, hey, here's a 240, here's 600 rounds of ammo, and here's your A gunner that's got 600 rounds of ammo, and here's a pistol, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? So
And don't forget your water. Don't forget your MREs. Don't
yeah,
forget
all your
your
chow,
first
and
aid kit. You know.
right, right. The only
Oh, and you got
benefit
a
to that,
couple
bro.
of, you got a couple. You got to carry an extra couple batteries for the, for the combo guy. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So during this workup, of course, we're assigned as the trap platoon, and that becomes our primary mission and whatnot. So all that ramp time, all that sitting on the non-skid, all that time, just rubbing your ass raw from non-skid and trying to
I have
sleep
no
and
idea why my camis are torn. I haven't barely worn these things.
exactly, yeah, right. And so, hurry up and wait. But we're good at it, whatever, we'll do it, yes, sir. So during the workup, we got to do a lot of cool shit. Because being part of the trap platoon, well, you might have to fast rope in. Well, you might have to spy rig out. So we ended up, when we got on float, and obviously this is fast forwarding, but we got to do a lot of that stuff when we pulled into some of the ports. But leaving early, we got on the boat and we hauled ass across to the west coast of Africa and found ourselves off the coast of the Congo. And the people are going in and out of Kinshasa and Brazzaville.
Yep,
They had a
very familiar.
yeah, I talked about it before. The Civil War was going on, and we weren't there very long until we got moved. We went north up into the armpit of Africa, um, to Sierra Leone, and that thing was full fledged. I mean,
Yep.
that shit was rocking at that time. So, but they were shuttling people, ferrying them off ashore onto the Kearsarge. And that operation was called Noble Obelisk. And to my
Yep.
knowledge, I don't know this for fact. Somebody in the Navy, or Navy brethren will correct me if not, but it was the largest non-combatant evacuation operation in the history of the Navy. They got an award for it and everything,
Yeah,
humanitarian award.
we were picking up with my time with the in the KC-130s. Yeah, we were picking up. We're flying all over. We're picking up Peace Corps workers. We're picking up French nationals, American nationals. We're flying them up to Dakar. But yeah, we had two ship
Yeah,
detachment down there. Um, but memory serves me correct. We're in Rhoda, and we got a phone call. Hey, you guys got to get the base ops. We're going to Africa, and I think it was like 9 or 10 months later. I'm finally on a flight back home, man. But yeah,
yeah.
it was a nonstop effort, man.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, who knows? We might have crossed paths. So, but yeah. So that, I mean, it was wild, and I mean, we got these people from this third world country who fucking knows diseases, and I mean, oh, the stench. But
Oh,
you know, they were living on our ship for 3 days, and they were in our berthing areas. They had so it's actually kind of funny. So this was my first encounter with seals. So they had kicked the seals out of their berthing area, and I don't know if it was because of where they were located. I would assume those guys probably have a pretty sweet area, but I also assume that it was pretty close to where you would have to exit out onto flight deck or whatever quickly. So they were probably in a convenient spot to house people. And I remember they moved those guys into our berthing area because were offshore, onshore, offshore, and so they moved them to our berthing area. We come in, our curtains are closed on our coffin racks. I'm like, oh shit! Open up my shit, and there's a dude laying there, and he
who
rolls
the fuck are
over.
you?
He rolls over. It's just like a little dude too, like smaller than me probably. He rolls over and he's like, "Hey, what's up, bro?" Who are you? He's like, oh, my name's Jeff or whatever the fuck it was. I'm like, and then I see his camis hanging there, and he's got the they got their freaking
They're
their
Trident.
trident. Yeah, and I'm like, holy shit, it's a varsity team. So but it was cool. They were really cool with us, and we kind of end up sharing the berthing area for a week while they were doing their shit. They would just disappear for days on end and come back, but it was all fixed, But we were running them up to Guinea, I believe, and dropping them off. But and you and I told you the story offline, but um, something really cool happened. So on the ship they had a ship store, and it was we're back and we're getting cleaned up, and I go down to the ship store and I'm standing in line, and this
Those dollar
lady,
cans of Copenhagen and those dollar pack of cigarettes.
right, yeah, 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 back in the good old days. So when this lady came up behind me, and she's in civilian clothes, and I don't know who she is, but I'm waiting in line. I said, "Ma'am, go ahead, go in front of me." No, it's fine. And I looked, and she's got a University of Michigan football sweatshirt on. And I looked, I said, "Oh, you a Wolverines fan?" She goes, "Well, yeah, I'm from Michigan." I said, "Oh, no kidding. What are you doing out here?" She was on mission. And her and the rest of her church had went on mission, and they were somewhere in that region, and basically had, you got to get out or you're going to get left here. And that's how she ended up on the ship. And funny
Yeah.
story, so we dropped, and I that's how I knew we were dropping them in Guinea. She said, "Yeah, apparently we have to go up to Guinea, and then we got to fly and find a flight back to stateside." I said, "Well, get home safe, and if I maybe I'll see you." We traded stories. Obviously, I'm from Michigan, and I said, "Oh, maybe I'll see you back in Michigan." All right. So 2 days later, bro, we're picking her up again. They had went back. Her and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, it's a mission." And I'm like, "Your mission ought to be getting west back to Tony, lady." Because it
Earning
was
those
the wild,
frequent
wild
flyer
west.
miles, not you know,
Yeah,
not back in there trying to teach someone how to plant a mango.
yeah, man. And so, but it was interesting. We spent about 60 days off the west coast of Africa doing that. We were largely uninvolved. My platoon was. Uh, but then our first Liberty stop after 60, I think it was like 63 days, 64 days out at sea, was the Canary Islands for 13 days. Now,
Nice.
I don't know if you've ever been to the Canary Islands or anybody watching this has been to the Canary Islands, but bro, you put a bunch of 19, 20, 21-year-old dudes that have been on a ship and around stinky people for 62 days in the Canary Islands, and it's paradise. So we spent a lot of money and hung out there and got sunbaked and then we went on to the typical med float. We missed out a lot of stuff. We didn't get to go to Corfu, Greece. We didn't get to go to a lot of those places because we had spent so much time and Navy money. We had to hit all those free Navy ports.
Right.
So I think we hit Naples 3 times. We hit Rota twice. But it was good. I mean, we had fun. I got to go into Rome and do all the touristy shit too.
One of the I'm not going to drop any names, but he's on our board of directors for the Miles Gregarius Foundation as a member at large, and him and I learned the what you can do and what you can do on leave and what you can't do on leave. And when you learn what you can't do on leave, you end up on liberty restriction. So,
Yeah.
and thank you, Corfu. So it's probably a good thing you missed out on that one, Devil.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean it was good. It was good. It was my first. I'm 19 years old, first time like really away from home, and I'm really away from home. I'm on a different freaking continent. Um, and it was cool. We saw the Straits of Gibraltar and all the things that you hear about and you see, and
Amazing.
yeah, it's just a really cool experience. And you just get lost in it. You get lost and you're with your buddies and you're having a good time and. Um, so we end up, and then it starts to normalize, and then you start to do some of this training with these different forces, and we went into Italy, and I don't remember where this was at, but I sent you these pictures too. If you get an opportunity, it's funny. So one of the guys that I was thick as thieves with, his name is Ted Layton, and hopefully, I don't know, Ted, if you're out there somewhere and you see this, you'll remember this story, and I hope you laugh about it. But him and I, a couple of clowns. We end up on an LPOP, a listening post observation post, out in this training area in Italy. And if you imagine, it's just like rolling hills. There's some tree line stuff, but we're doing basic infantry stuff, and we're in this LPOP, him and I. And these two kids, probably 12, 13, 14 years old, are riding their bike and they wanted to come see us. Well, we were all cammied up. We had camouflage paint. We got the straw grass that's all around us in this field, and we've got it pulled over top of us. So you barely see us, which was the point. And they come riding by, and dude, they rode 8 feet away from us on this little trail and didn't see us. And Ted looks over at me, Leighton, he looks over at me and goes, "Hey, those are real Italians. I bet they have real spaghetti." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Oh,
dipshit, I would assume so." And he goes, "If they come back," he says, I'm gonna jump out of I gotta stop them and ask them. I'm like, "Bro, we can't, you don't want to be compromised." And he's like, "Come on, how it's fucking training." And I'm like, "All right." So anyway, these dudes come riding back, and sure as shit, Leighton jumps up and we're like, "Hey." And so they stop and they freak out. They're like, "Oh my God." Well, one of the kids had he had a book in his hand, a translation book from Italian to English, English to Italian. And he's speaking very broken English to us. And Leighton is like laying on the Italian English. And he's like, "No, you bring me a spaghetti." you know, and I'm like, I'm laughing, but at the same time, I'm like, "You're such a douche." But Anyway, he gets these kids convinced to go back to their house and have their mom make us spaghetti and bring it
Hell yeah.
back out. And sure as shit, dude, they showed up 3 hours later with a backpack and these little Tupperware containers with spaghetti.
Did he
And
chew his ass why it took him so long?
no, no,
Three
no.
hours.
I mean, at first we were starting to lose hope, right? I mean, we're looking at, because we had an MRE with us, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, how much longer do you think we should wait, dude? And he's like, I'm gonna eat the M&Ms out of mine, but I'm holding out hope. And so, we get a little snack out, and I had the four fingers of death one, so that one came with the potato stick, so it's like eating potato chips, and I'm like, yeah, I can get the potato chips. And sure as shit, dude, here they come, and like I said, they had this backpack with Tupperware trees or trays with spaghetti in it, and it was still warm. But here's the kicker: the other dude, he gets off his backpack and he pulls out bottles of beer. And Leighton
Hell
goes,
yeah.
fuck yeah. And I'm like, ugh. And I'm looking around, I'm like, and we're probably 800-900 meters away from our platoon. So I'm like, even if we can see our platoon, they can't see us, but we can see them because it's on the other side of the hill and through the valley. There's like little fingers, and we were down in this valley area on a ridge line, and I'm like, we can see them, even if our squad leaders start coming up to check on us or to rotate out with us, we could see them coming. So we could clearly, we could bury this shit. And so they brought four beers, and we drank them bitches.
Hell yeah.
It was great. So, but yeah, I sent you a picture. I got a beer bottle in my
Right,
hand,
right.
and yeah, I don't
You've
know what
been
it was.
you've been
Couldn't
in love
taste it,
with
man.
Italy ever since.
Yeah, man.
No.
So, but
So
yeah,
you guys have a
we
MU deployment, right?
yep,
So you're on the west coast of Africa. You finish up the ops down there. Um,
yep,
you guys end up going through the med. You finish up
yep.
a typical med deployment. How many months you think that was from the time you left Africa, and then you jump back up into the med for the regular deployment?
What was that? One more time.
For the time you left Africa and you headed back up into the MU to finish up the deployment, how many months did you spend floating around the med?
Uh, 3.5, 4 probably, because I think you
Okay.
start cutting back about 30 days out.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
So you guys do the what the hell do they call it? The freshwater cleanup or
Wash
the
down.
wash?
Yep,
Yeah. Yeah. The wash down.
yep,
You guys
wash
do the
down.
wash down in Rhoda. Is that what you guys did?
Yeah, yep, we sure did.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then you
And
guys
that's
head
where,
back.
and yeah, so when we were in that, that's largely a naval operation. The Marines, they got to take their Humvees off, and basically you're just spraying off all your gear and shit with fresh
Right.
water to get all the salt water. Yeah, same thing you're saying. But during that time is when we got to actually do the spy rigging, which I mean, for a 19-year-old infantry guy, that's like, I just want to. I mean, this is shit you see on the movies, man. So this is super cool. And, I'm up there floating around at 800 feet, looking down at swimming pools that are this big, and
Yeah.
just just having the time of our lives. And I don't know if you remember this, but like, so in the late 90s is when those, you remember those Mountain Dew commercials came out
Yeah.
where they were skydiving and they're doing this, do the do, and it's like, it's going right in the dude's mouth. So Ted and I had this idea. He's like, "Hey, bro, let's get a can of Mountain Dew and let's recreate that." And I've got like this, like a little camcorder.
Yeah. Like a Sony Cam 8 or something, 8 millimeter.
Yeah, yeah, with the little, you put the little tape in it. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
well, for anybody that was planning to recreate that commercial, let me go ahead and save you the time. It doesn't fucking work. In fact, it just goes like this all over your face. And it was like, what the hell, man? And so back to what you were saying about grunts being smart, not one of our smart moments,
Yeah.
but it was fun.
Yeah, so you guys pump back to the States. You have a whole bunch of liberty, time off. And then what happens? You go back to 1-2, and then
Yeah, yeah, back to Victor 1-2. We're back in the normal gas chamber every year, rifle, or gas chamber, rifle range,
rifle
swim qual.
quals, pistol qual, swim qual.
Yeah, you're hitting all that stuff, and this was, and I don't remember if it was before we left for float. I think this was before we left for float. And this was all of this stuff kind of blends together for me. But do you remember when the 46 and the Cobra hit each other over New River?
I do.
90, I think it was 96.
I
It
do
was
remember that very
96.
well. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that was right down on like the French Creek area. I mean, it was
Yep.
right, and I was on ammo detail that night. Me and Ted were on ammo guard together that night when that shit happened. We didn't see it. We saw the flash and everything, but that was 8th Marines. was involved in that. Bunch of guys in Eighth Marines, but yeah, that was kind of fucked up. But that kind of led into like how serious everything was going, and up until that point, I really didn't have a good grasp on what I was doing. And then the float happened, and and then after we come back from that, we kind of go back into the grind, and again, it's peacetime still. There's nothing really going on, and so I started having some problems at home, some marriage problems and whatnot, and we started talking about what am I going to do next. And I never planned on. Again, I didn't plan on joining the Marine Corps to begin with. This was I didn't want to go to college deal. And then once I got in, I thought, I'll just play it by ear. I don't plan on making a career out of this. Whatever happens, happens. So then everything started happening. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, she's going to move back home with her parents. And so it came up to the point where I was just short enough to not have enough time to make the next deployment in June of '99 to go to Okinawa. They wanted me to extend for a year. And what was going on at home, I can't. I don't know. It's volatile. I don't know what's going to happen. So we had to sit, and there was about 8 of us that
Yeah, I
were in
mean,
that
you're having
same boat.
troubles with your marriage, as
Yeah.
99% of the Marine Corps has,
Right.
right? And then you're like, oh, by the way, we have all these problems, and now here's Okinawa,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, 50% of the guys you and I know are like, fuck it, I'm taking it, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Guys would be like, all right, that's an easy out. That'll help end this even faster by dropping Okinawa on top of her head,
Yep.
but obviously you didn't do that.
Yeah. No, in hindsight, I probably should have joined that 50%. But you're right. And you're right. It's one of those things, and I'm 20 years old now. Since I'm still a fucking kid, bro. It's like and the Marine Corps is not teaching you the families. And if anything, at that point in time, and I don't know how it is these days, but at that time it was discouraged to begin with. I mean, I
Yeah.
came in right after the point in time where, at least in the infantry, I was just a few years out from being removed, that you had to get permission from your chain of command to get married. That was still a kind of a
A
rumbling
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't, and especially for a land, and you had to be a corporal, you had to be an NCO, and and it's crazy to think that, but looking at it now, I kind of wish I would have been like grabbed up and said, no, bro, you ain't doing this. But whatever, I did what I thought was right at the time, and it just didn't work out. We were both kids, we had no business being married, but so yeah, I didn't have enough time for Okinawa. And like I said, there was 8 or 10 of us, I think, total in that same boat. And so we had to sit down with the battalion sergeant major, and he's chewing our ass. Where's your dedication, Marines, and this and that and the other. And like, well, whatever. And hey, I think he talked a couple people into extending at the end of that ass chewing.
Those
And so there
suckers.
was 8. Exactly. So there was 8 of us. There's 8 of us in this group now that didn't take the bait and extend. And I kind of wish I would have, but he says, all right, the rest of you are getting orders to go over to the School of Infantry at Camp Geiger. And so this is 1998.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh shit, I don't, to do what? Like, you're going to be an instructor. I'm like, what? So something, and I'm right back in the same boat of me realizing, and this is when I realized it, like, oh shit, they send all the short timers who sometimes have bad attitude. I didn't have a bad attitude about the Marine Corps at that time. I loved it. I was just in a bad situation. It wasn't good for me at the time, but I went over there with a super good attitude. And in all honesty, dude, it was the best time I had in my life. That year
Fantastic.
over there it was freaking awesome. I loved, and it's where I actually loved or learned to love to teach. I couldn't be a teacher in school. I mean, no, especially now with all the cell phones and shit. But seeing, having been in the fleet as an infantry guy, having done, and land nav was my thing. I mean, I naturally gravitated to land nav. I picked it up really quick and I understood it. So when I got over
Now, the
to,
land nav that you guys were teaching, do you credit that to your time learning lav nav as a forward observer? Or
oh,
was it
yeah,
the basic stuff that you get
no,
coming out of ITB or something like that?
no, I mean, obviously ITB, they you learn quite a bit, but as much, you don't retain a lot of it, because it's just on to the next thing, on to the next thing. It was those 2.5 years that I was in the fleet, mainly as a forward observer.
Eating
Um,
spaghetti.
yeah, man. because you have to navigate yourself to observation points, and then you got to start. And a lot of times you're out there with a 3-man team, a 4-man team. So you're really starting to learn that craft, and you're really starting to train association. How to do back azimuths, how to plot points, how your pre-designated targets, all of that stuff. And I really, it was natural for me. I don't know why. Again, it's a lot of freaking geometry, and but for me, it just became natural. And I think some of it was I grew up in the woods. I grew up on the river. I grew up following tributaries. Understood. My dad was, hey, if you get lost, follow the river. The river will dump into a big body of water, and around big bodies of water are civilization. Um, Small things like that I learned at 8 years old, 9 years old, growing up in the woods on the river, canoeing, camping, hunting. So it was natural for me. So when I got to SOI, we got broken up. 3 of us out of the 8 went to MCT, and the other ones went to ITB. Now that I was a little irritated with, because I'm like, come on, man, I got to go teach these pogues. So, um, but what I
Sorry,
learned really,
sorry, we
no, no,
exist.
no. Listen, man, what I learned immediately was those guys and gals, because at this time in the Marine Corps, now they do it on both coasts. They do it at Pendleton as well. But at that time, females were only trained on the East Coast, female Marines.
Right,
And so we were trained. Now, I don't have, now they were 4th platoon is what they were. They're usually 4th platoon or something inside the company. But they had female instructors. So we weren't like, I wasn't a male instructor in charge of females. But individual medals, um, we would, I'm teaching land nav. So I would give the period of instruction in a classroom setting, and then I would actually go out and oversee the land nav portion of the course. And it's largely a compass course. I don't know if you remember doing it. I don't know how it is out afraid. It's rat lines. You're on the right track because you've got this embedded 15-year-old trail that's going to the white box with the red numbers and the red box with the yellow numbers. But I took a lot of pride in it, and I think where I loved the most was the remedials. So during the daytime you had to get 4 of 6 boxes, and at night you had to get 2 of 4 boxes or whatever the number was, and it never failed, man. We would have these remedials, and some of the other corporals and sergeants that were instructors and just, what is wrong with you, you piece of shit, blah 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 blah. Me, during the day course, I didn't do this at night, but during the day course, I told them I would gather them around, and I said, listen, this is a check in the box. You guys have to pass this to graduate SOI, graduate MCT. You don't go anywhere unless you graduate this. I said, how many of you guys want to pass this? And of course, all of them raised their hand, and usually you'd have a mixed bunch. It's some females, some males. I said, all right. At the time, we had H harnesses. Remember the H harness with the 2 canteens and the butt pack? I said, drop your H harness, grab 1 canteen, grab your compass, and let's go. And I would run them to every box, and I'm just dogging them, right? And it was a lesson learned. Like, and dude, they're dropping. I mean, they're dropping. But we would run, and by time, you're talking some of these legs are 700-800 meters. So we're running 4 miles through the brush and swamp and stuff, and but they got a lot out of it, and I appreciated it, and that was a good time. And that's kind of, I finished up my active duty stint at Camp Geiger Fox Company in
right,
MCT.
right. So you're an instructor, got a deployment or two underneath your belt, Africa, got a broken marriage. You get out of the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
Where'd you go?
yeah. So I went on terminal leave. I don't remember in '99 because my EAS would have been what October 3rd of '99. So I think I had 30 days of terminal leave. So sometime around September I took off. So call up my dad. I'm like, hey, coming home. He's like, all right, well, your bedroom's still available. I'm like, I need to find a job. He's like, okay. So I get home, and there wasn't a lot going on, but my Uncle Bill was working at a concrete pumping place. So um, ready mix trucks, they dump into the pumps that have to put the booms out to pour bridge decks and stuff like that. And he says he can get you in there, but you got to go get your CDL license. I'm like, done. I can do that. So I go get a CDL license, and it's a union job making $25 an hour. So I'm fresh
Hell
out of the
yeah.
Marine Corps. Yeah. So I mean, for me, and I'm not paying rent. I'm living at my dad's house, and just waiting for the next step. And there's some relationships going on back and forth in that time. And I'm moving around a little bit. And I'm down in Grand Rapids, and I'm back up to my dad's in Morley. And um, before finally, I'm just like, I got to do something else, man. I got to do something else. And at that point, was probably home for about 3 months, and I'm like, man, I fucked up. I should have stayed active duty in the Marine Corps. So I go back down to the recruiting office, and I talk to him, and it was a totally different. It's not the same recruiters now. It's two totally different guys. And I talk to him, and I'm like, hey, I want to go back in, this and that and the other. And they're like, well, it's kind of different because again, it's '99. There's nothing going on. 9/11 hadn't happened yet. There's no major conflicts going on. They just didn't need numbers. And the guy's like, I don't know. Let me make some phone calls. So he calls the career planner. Career planner calls me. It's like, man, there's really nothing going on out there. I can try to get you. This kept going on for like a month. And you're playing phone tag with this guy.
Was it the same MOS they were trying to keep you in?
Yeah, yep, yeah.
Would you have had other options if it was a different MOS, or if you wanted to do a lat move into a different MOS, would they have been able to pick you up quicker without those issues?
Remember the story I told you about my junior year of high school when he says, "Hey, man, you're going to want to retake this
Oh
ASVAB."
yeah,
So that was a non-starter for me unless I retook the ad. And honestly, I said infantry. And, hey, do you want to go West Coast, East Coast? And I kind of screwed myself on this because my ex-wife at the time, and my son, they're living in Michigan. So, hey, let me try to stay East Coast. So it's a swoop home, 12-hour swoop home from Lejeune or whatever. And so it was kind of difficult, and I didn't make it any easier for myself. I was kind of trying to pull the strings, and he was trying to help me out. But at any rate, it just didn't work out. And he told me, but he was the one that told me, he says, hey, man, have you thought about the reserves? And I'm like, reserves? No, fuck that, hell no. Weekend warrior, some dude that works at Walmart and, for 28 days, and then he shows up looking like a bag of shit and everything. That was my thought of what the reserve was. So I said, you know what? It'll get me connected back to the Marine Corps at least a little bit. I need something because I was kind of having withdrawals. I loved it. It was a big part of my
yeah.
small adult life at that time. So that's what I did. They hooked me up with Alpha Company 124 out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and so I go and I checked in there January, like right after New Year's in 2000 is when I checked in there. So it'd been about 4 month break off active duty. And again, I'm doing the concrete pumping job at the time, so I'm making good money.
Now,
But I just,
was that a full 4 months? Because you had mentioned you went on terminal leave, so you had like 90 days of term. I mean, so was it a 4 full months that you spent out in first Civ Div before you said "fuck it, I need back
uh,
in"? Or
I mean, it was 4 calendar months, but I wasn't really engaged in employment. Those
okay,
30 days of terminal leave, I used 30 days of terminal leave. Like
okay,
I wasn't doing shit. I was just hanging out, decompressing a little bit, trying to figure out the
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 next
the
plan.
marriage thing. Yeah, what was I going to do next? How am I gonna pay this? How am I going to do that? And so anyway, I got linked up with Alpha Company 124, and I checked in there right after the first of the year. Their first drill back, weekend drill, after the first of the year in 2000.
How do they take
And
you in?
so the reserve, when you check in, and I was witness to this even afterward, when an active duty guy comes to the reserve, it's like, whoa, here comes experience. Look at this dude. And I came from the School of Infantry, so I'm coming from an instructor. I'm not a drill instructor, but I'm coming from the School of Infantry, and they loved it. Like, oh, dude, you're gonna be able to teach this. You're gonna be able to teach that, and I did. Um, my experience going into it, though, dude, the first drill when they called everybody to, so we're in an old naval. It's an old historical site from the Korean War along the Grand River. Dog Company was the original company back in the Korean War when they had activated them. It literally, when I say historical site, they can't like make modifications to it
Yeah.
because it's in the cultural society thing. So it's a basketball court inside of this drill center. It's small, and we're in kind of like a horseshoe formation, like anybody else would be. And I got assigned a weapons platoon. I was a mortarman. They assigned me to weapons platoon as the mortar section leader. They called everybody to attention, Dude, I almost lost my mind. I saw some of the worst. I'd never seen this shit. Like again, I'm like, bro, steam, steam, and I'm watching corporals do about face to call their, because the company first sergeant calls, company attention report. So everybody's going around to get their report, for their
Yell
accountability
off the
reports.
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah, yeah, and they
president
turn back
accounted
around,
for.
headquarters platoon, all president accounted for, first sergeant. I'm watching this shit happen, and I'm going, I'm gonna fucking choke somebody right now. I cannot believe that these are corporals, and I'm a corporal at the time. I'm like,
You
no,
know,
no, no,
it's
no.
it's it's funny, man, because when I got out of the Marine Corps, I got involved with commercial aviation, right? And when I left my job in upstate New York with an airline and ended up just outside of Detroit in Ypsilanti with the heavy with Coletta, I went around the state of Michigan looking to join the reserves because I missed being up in the air, you know. And I went to, I think it was Lansing, I think it was Chinooks. And I remember walking around, man, and I just kind of showed up. This is who I am. This is what I'm thinking about doing. I wanted to like check out the units. I'd spoken to a prior service air guard Army Reserve type recruiter, so he set it up, and I think it was Chinooks. It might have been a medevac unit or something out of Lansing, and this was probably 2000. This was pre 9/11, and can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
I froze for a second.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry, guys. We just had a technical glitch. We're back. Yeah. So it was around 2000. It was pre 9/11, and kind of to your point, I remember walking around, and I came from the KC 130 community. We at the time we haven't had a fatality from Khe all the way forward into Afghanistan, where we
Wow.
when we lost an airplane in Pakistan, and I never once. It was a very we flew the shit out of the aircraft, but we didn't have any fatalities. And the Marines in the KC 130 community, the ones in charge of keeping us alive, the gunnies, the pilots, the flight engineers, the load masters, everyone, even the guys turning wrenches, right? They were all
Mhm.
solid people, man. And I
Awesome.
never saw a shit bag in a flight suit.
Right.
I show up there, and I'm not disparaging their service, but it's the optic of coming from the community that I came from, walking into a community where guys can't even zip up their flight suits, man.
Right.
You got
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
reservists with these big bellies, right? Who knows what they're doing in their off job, right? And I'm walking around, I'm like, I'm looking at these guys, I'm looking at the aircraft. They're good looking aircraft, they're clean, they haven't seen much. And I'm looking at the guys up on the nacelles turning wrenches. I'm looking at the guys walking around, and I'm like, I don't think so. And then
Yeah,
at the
man.
time, I'm not sure if you remember, the Army aviation wing at the time, the Army as a whole, they were bended metal. They had a couple Black Hawk crashes, a couple Apaches went
Right.
down. They had some in-flight collisions and stuff. So it wasn't. So when the Army was making it, it almost seemed like a habitual pattern for a while that the Army was bending metal. So I came from the community that I came from, and I was looking to join a community that had almost like a quota they had to meet to bend metal. And I'm seeing
Right.
these guys who can't even zip their flight suits up. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this
Yeah.
because I didn't have any other options in the southeastern Michigan area, man. So I get it when you say you had steam blowing out of your
Yeah.
ears and you wanted to light some dudes up because something as simple as an about face or a hand salute or calling a squad to a formation to attention and it's all fucked up. You're like, if they're that fucked up doing something this simple, what else are they fucked up at?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir. 100%. And that's the first thing that went through my mind is, and I'm not a combat seasoned person at this point. I hadn't seen combat. But I had been around and I had done enough things on active duty that that's all second nature. That's your job every single day on active duty. So I had a come to Jesus moment right then because I thought, you know what, fuck this, I can't do this. And then I was driving home. I want to say that was just a two driller, which basically is just like one night. It was the first drill back, and I was driving home, and it's about a 40-minute drive back from the drill center back to where I'm staying at my dad's, and I'm just sitting there like I'm just in a daze. Like I can't. What am I gonna do? And when I started to think about it, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna fix it. I am going to take what I know, and I'm just gonna be what I was then as a corporal over at SOI. Not not drill instructor mode or anything like that by any means, but it's got to get fixed. And the good news was there was a handful of dudes in that unit that ended up sticking it out all the way to the end too, like me, who were contract reservists, but they gave a fuck and they thought the same way I did. So
Is
it's
that
not like
amazing? Isn't it
yeah,
amazing when you hook up with people that fucking care, that
yeah,
have that give a fuck? It's. I
yeah,
mean, what a absolute blessing that is, man. To
yep,
to find people like that. Even with what you and I do for a living today, man. Actually being able to put your arms around people that give a fuck. I mean, it's just such an incredible. It's an incredible. They're an incredible asset.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, there was a couple staff NCOs there that were, Gunny Matt Barrera comes to mind. He gave a fuck. I mean, dude gave a fuck, and he took it all the way through. I think he was 23 years before he retired. But him, there was a couple other guys. Retired Sergeant Major Ken Baum, who is a cop up in freaking up by Traverse City somewhere. Just amazing dude, right? And he was a gunny at the time. He was a platoon. I want to say he was a platoon commander. And that was the other thing too. Is it was really shocking. Is in the reserve, in the infantry, at least at our unit, we had sergeants as platoon commanders because you don't have a lot of officers. You just don't have a lot of commissioned officers that go to the reserve. But two guys in particular that I remained friends with the whole time, and we deployed several times together after this. The next deployment coming up in '03 and then '06, and then we kind of split ways, and one of them became a commissioned officer. But Rob Lehner and Ken Fall, um, those two dudes just gave a fuck, and those two dudes were best friends, and so I kind of like. I swooped in and became part of their little group, and we sat there and talked about the things, and they had the same motivations, and I thought, man, you guys would have been great on active duty, so they would have fit right in. You wouldn't have known the difference, and that's kind of how I gauged it.
Right.
But we all got on the same page, and we started just pushing these dudes and demanding more out of them, and
What was that
little
resistance
by
like? Did you guys encounter any resistance to that, or
A little bit, but nothing that you don't see on active duty either. The same 10% exists everywhere in every workforce, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the same 10%. Fuck this! I'm not doing that. Blah 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 blah. My goal was to encourage the wayward, get the 90% to come along. The 10% will be forced, peer pressured, or leave.
or leave?
In either case, especially in a warfighting unit, any one of those works for me. I'll take it. But slowly but surely, and the chain of command changed, and um, that helped out a lot too. Because you get, for those that have never seen the reserve, that are watching this or don't understand the component, the way that it works is you have your reserve component that they're gone 28 days a month. They show up for a weekend drill, and then in the summer they do their 2-week annual training period, which you're going to an active duty base usually where you have more amenities, the ranges and so on. Are you hitting the wickets, the gas chamber, the swim quals, things that you don't typically get to do in the reserve? But on the other side, there's always an active duty staff at reserve units called the inspector instructor staff, or I&I staff. It's a group of dudes made up of about 6 to 8, maybe. You got an admin section, which is 2 or 3 people. You've got an I&I instructor. The I&I himself, the inspector instructor, is a commissioned officer. He's kind of like the leader of that side. And then they have an enlisted leader, a senior enlisted leader, a first sergeant. And then you've got a company gunny. Those dudes they put together your training package for what's happening when you come in on the weekends. So you're largely uninvolved in this. You show up on a Friday night. A lot of these guys, after they get out of work at 4 p.m., they show up in their camis. Some of them have haircuts. Some of them don't. Oh, sorry, Corporal. Sorry, I didn't have time to get a haircut. Like, you didn't fucking know drill was coming up for an entire month, idiot.
Yeah,
So,
you told your employer you were freaking bouncing out of town,
yeah,
man. Get your fucking
it, it,
haircut.
Yeah, and they get a drill schedule an entire
Right.
fiscal year in advance. So but you had to deal with things like that. So and then missing gear and shit, they lose shit all the time, and we went through different iterations. Oh fuck it,
God, it
now you're
sounds like
taking off.
active duty.
Yeah, it is. But the difference is in active duty when you're missing gear, you run back to your barracks and you get your fucking gear. Here, well, Gunny, I mean Gunny, Sergeant, I got to drive across town, or I live 40 minutes from here, I live an hour from here. This is just a pain in the ass. So we started making them keep their packs, all their gear. We would dump packs and do it by the numbers. This is how anal we got about it towards the the reconditioning of this unit. The 4 or 5 of us that were really down with this, and let's fix this shit. So, but anyway, you show up on a Friday night and you get accountability, you get your muster, you draw your weapons out of the armory, which anybody that's ever drawn weapons out of the armory, you know how that it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're in the reserve, active duty. I've never been in a recon or a SOG or soft unit, but I bet it takes them long too. For some reason, the fucking armory, it just I've never seen such a slow it's like a sloth.
It's a
The
long-standing tradition that must be upheld.
I'm telling you, man, these armorers, it's probably a rite of passage. Like, listen, gents, when you get out to the fleet, minimum wait time is 3 hours. So, and it's like, and
Yeah,
you
they
got,
fail armorer's school if they move too fast.
right, you're moving too fast there, devil, slow it down. Recheck that weapons card, make sure the serial number is correct. But it's an important job. I get it, but it just took so long. And I mean, you're grabbing FVGs, you're grabbing rifles, you're grabbing whatever. And in the reserve, now you got charter buses waiting outside on the driveway.
Mm.
So you're getting on these Cardinal buses to go. For us in Grand Rapids, sometimes 4 hours north to Camp Grayling or Alpena to go onto an Army training facility, so you can go to the ranges and whatnot. So start adding that time together. You got Friday night until Sunday afternoon. That's what they would consider a 5 drill weekend. If it was a 7 drill, you would show up Thursday night. They got to be careful with that because it's a community-based service thing, right? No, so now you're taking people away from their jobs on Thursdays and Friday. So it's difficult. It's a hard managing tool that I learned a lot more about as I got higher in rank. But you would go. I mean, now you're on a bus for 4 hours. So buses usually pulling out of the parking lot at 7, 8 o'clock at night. So you're getting up to Grayling at 11, 12 o'clock midnight. So you're racking out, right? So, but by the time you get your bivouac set up, or if it's cold as shit out like it normally would be, you're in a barracks somewhere. You're getting bedded down by 02. You're up at 06:30. So now 4 hours of sleep, and you go out and you got. But meanwhile, the point of that was the inspector instructor group, the I&I staff. They put together your training plan. So here I am, a mortar section leader, and we would have conference calls and whatnot before the drill starts. So you're in the loop of what's going on, but you're not really in the loop. You didn't plan the training, which means you didn't typically come in and put together those risk management assessments for ranges. You didn't the ORMs, the operational risk managements. You didn't do the back planning for all that. Um, you weren't the company gunny, so you're not putting together your beans, your bullets, your bandages, and all that shit. So you little things that make up a unit, an infantry unit especially, that matter. I mean, that's your job. That's your craft. Being a platoon sergeant or a section leader, that's your craft. So now you've got junior Marines, you're fucking lost. They're lost. So you're just basically just walking around like ducks in a line, right? Hey, now go to this range, go to that range. So that was one thing that we fixed immediately. We stopped that. You guys can secure the range for us at said training site, Alpena, Grayling, Atterbury, in Indiana, wherever we were going. We will put the plan together. We will execute the plan. Which what that meant for us was in civilian was
Were the
going to our
I&I guys
bus.
happy that you took charge of that, or did you get resistance?
No, well, yes and no. I think there was a concern from them, and rightfully so. Like, hey, listen, dudes, a lot goes into this, and we were like, yep, got it. We know. We want you to show us so we can start. And then it got to the point where we're locking on the ranges. We're calling ahead. We're making liaison with the RSOs and things like that. And it was important to us that we did that because it was our company. And what really helped us was the inspector instructor at the time, and I don't remember his name, or I'd give him 100% credit, dude, because just an awesome fucking dude. This is a major. and he got assigned to this. And a lot of times those guys don't want those billets. I mean, you're an infantry officer getting assigned to a reserve unit isn't it's I can't imagine it's the highlight of your career. Um, but it happens and somebody's got to do it. And they totally embraced us wanting to take that over and making it our company. And so it just by happenstance, it worked really well. And we had a really good, at the time, we were bringing in a really good reserve command staff as well. The company commander, the first sergeant, and everything else it was really good.
All right. So you're at the reserve unit. Your head's exploding because you don't like what you see what's happening. Right. You step up, you take charge, you affect positive change. You take charge getting the ops planning, the coordination for the drill weekends and all that. To a guy like me who knows you, this seems like you are turning into the Jeremiah Howe that I know today.
Yeah,
you saw a problem, you became vocal about it, and you came up with a fix.
Right.
So what happens next?
Yeah, 100% right. And this was really, I mean, and it clicked for me too. I didn't know. It just happened. And thankfully to Rob and Ken and those other guys, they really, and, Gunny Baum, who's Sergeant Major Baum, I credit those guys. I credit those guys for agreeing that this needed to happen and all of us being on the same page and saying, fuck it, let's do it.
Oh, it's great. I mean, there's no, one of the biggest downfalls, as you and I are quite aware of, is hubris. People, having to battle that. We'd like to use the term that violence rules the day, but violence isn't getting through hubris. So it's good that you had that kind of staff and you had that kind of support that agreed with you, that recognized it and wanted to work with it instead of you having to fight it.
Right. Yeah. And so I would say it took about a year or two. And you got to remember too, in this time frame, just like on active duty, you've got turnover. Although the turnover is a little longer. So reserve contracts are typically 6 years, where in active duty is 4 years. You start rotating those guys out at 3 years on the active duty side, just simply based on their time. And just like me, I didn't have enough time to stay at the unit. That's a little different in the reserves. You're there till your very last drill of 6 years. But you have some good NCOs and some guys that are starting to come into the fold and be like, yeah, I'm down with this shit. Let's do it. And they started going to PME courses, because that's the other thing in the reserve too, man. You, on your 2-week annual training period, that's when you're on active duty for 2 weeks. I mean, a corporal's course is 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is, 6 or 8 weeks long. They're not going to that. They're not going to that shit. So they started putting together condensed corporal's courses at the battalion level. See, while this was going on in our company, it was going on at the battalion level as well. So it was the best case scenario for our entire battalion. And thank God, thank fucking God. Good. Because when those deployments came later on in 03 and especially in 06, I mean, dude, we were well, I've never seen a better unit in my life. Active or reserve. So when that was happening at battalion level too, so battalions started saying, hold on a second, these corporals, they need to get their PME courses. They need to be getting the corporal's course. I mean, they don't know the fucking sword manual. They don't know shit. And it's hard to manage. And so our battalion commander and our battalion sergeant major, actually, that's his duty, was putting this together. And so during these 2-week annual training periods, and this sucked, but the corporals would go off. So let's say we go to Camp Lejeune for our annual training period, which we did in 04 later on. I think we went in 02 as well. This happened in 02. So in 2002, we're down in Camp Lejeune, and all the corporals split off, and they go to a condensed, for the next 14 days, they're gone. We don't see them. They're at a corporal's course, a condensed corporal's course put on by staff NCOs. They put the shit together, man. They got to hold some swords. And they go to the active duty guys and say, hey, can you show us the curriculum? And then they cut down a lot of the nonsense stuff that
I'd have to get back into my brain housing group and figure out what year I went through NCO school down there. But there was a lot of information. There was a lot going on. I couldn't look back now and pick out what was not important and what was to be set aside, to be moved into a condensed version because there was so much, man. I mean,
Yeah.
because you still
Yeah.
have all the traditional Marine Corps hoorah shit they're teaching you, right? But those
Yep.
courses evolve to what the Marine Corps is today. And I
Yeah.
remember going through NCO school, and I can only imagine that a condensed course has just got to be.
Oh, dude, yeah, and the same thing. I went to it in active duty, and I want to say it was 4 weeks long, but they condensed it, and not only did they condense it down, they still had a fucking mess night,
Mm,
which was
oh, the
awesome
mess.
because
God,
yeah, so and we got invited
the
to the
smoking
mess
lamp
night,
is
right?
lit. Yeah.
Yeah, we got all the because I was a sergeant by this time. They they invited us. They invite who they want to invite. So they invited the rest of the company staff over to watch, and there's some hazing going on and there's some shit going on over there. But it was awesome, and to see these corporals, even with that condensed portion, the maturity, the difference in them when they stepped out of that course and went back for the
Hell
last
yeah.
what 2 days. All we did was travel back to Grand Rapids. Just that you could see it. Their leadership, their approach, and it wasn't get on the fucking boss. None of that, dude. It was like they gave the why. Here's what I need you to do, and here's why. That's always been a big thing for me. It still is today at my job at what we do. In some of the senior management that consider themselves leaders, and I push back on them all the time. I said, "What? Why? And don't tell me I told you so. I'm not fucking five.
Right.
I've led Marines in combat.
Well,
I don't
that
do this.
I have always said that the hardest question you can ask someone is a question why.
Yeah,
And it can be the most easiest question to answer or it can be the most difficult question to answer. And when
right,
it's a difficult question, why? That is when the uncomfortableness comes out. And that is when because I'm the fucking boss, that's why responses come out. And if you
right.
just take the time, and you and I know, if you explain the why, and I don't want to get off tangent here, but when you
Sure,
explain the why, that's when you get your buy-in because
hundred
people
percent.
understand and
Yeah.
people know and they're like, all right, fuck it, man, I get it. That makes sense now. That's the why. I'm all in. Let's do this. So,
Even if they don't want to be there, even if they
oh
don't
yeah,
necessarily agree with the position that you're taking, say, hey, yeah, at least I get it now. Now I give you a mission statement, I give you a direction, and I say this is what I need done. I'm entrusting you to do that, and here's why we need to get this done. And it's probably because somebody else told me it needs to get done, but that's the guidance, that's the
and it's
direction.
funny
Let's
too
make it
because
happen.
at the higher levels of leadership, or God, I hate the word management, right? The why comes, hey, we're doing this from the top. The first level down, the guys understand it. They don't have to ask the why because they got the experience, they got the knowledge, right? And then it goes down another level, and it might have to get explained a little bit, right? They're like, "Oh, I get it,"
Sure.
and then it starts getting pushed down, and that why starts getting peppered down to everyone else underneath it, and then you lose
Yeah.
all that, you know.
Yeah.
So to be at the ground operating level with the why and having these corporals explain it to the Lance coolies and then working it down, it just boggles my mind why the why is not part of every 5 paragraph, why it's not part of every muster, why it's not part of every briefing, why it's not part of every
Yeah.
every every meeting, man. It's just so
Well,
effective, man.
I mean, I can tell you why. A lot of times, it's funny that we're talking about this because I'm having flashbacks and memories, and then I'm blending conversations of even listening to podcasts. Um, I think probably the one that explained this best on the most recent podcast is Dakota Meyer when he talked about it, and
Fuck
he
yeah.
goes, immediately when somebody doesn't know their fucking job when they give that, because that's why we're doing it. We're doing it because I said. And if you can't articulate to a private, a PFC, or a Lance Corporal to where they have that buy-in like you're talking about, the reason for that is because they don't even understand what the fuck they're saying.
Yep.
And you won't find that out a lot of times until you get in a Dakota Meyer situation. And then you're like, hey, there's nobody to fucking take over. I'm doing it. But
Yep.
that's
Yep.
how Medal of Honor stories are told. I mean, that's exactly
That's how
why
they're
that
created.
dude, that's why that dude is who he is
Yeah.
today as a reservist, by the way, back in the reserve. But Yeah, so we saw that change in those guys, and I thought it was cool. But again, it's not something it's once a year you get to do that, and so it just wasn't something that was able to be replicated multiple times over. But it was beneficial.
Right.
So after that, so but that was 2002. So let me back up.
All right.
So obviously, worst day in American history on our soil. 9/11 happens. Everybody, and I don't care who you are, everybody remembers exactly where they were at the second that news came across or whatever. I was actually, so I'm doing my concrete pumping job. I'm in Moline, Michigan, off of 100th Street, 131 and 100th Street, little farm area. And I was the night before. I had a job that I had screwed something up, and I got concrete was set up in these pipes. And my boss Michelle, she was pissed, and she's like, "I don't give a shit what you have to do. You're going to clean these out." And I'm like, "Roger that." So, I'm out there being a Marine. I'm whatever it takes, mission accomplishment. I'm going to get this out, bro. These pipes are 10 feet long, and they already weigh like 40 pounds dry, and they're like 5-inch aluminum style pipes that the concrete flows through. Fill those with concrete. Bro, I'm miserable, dude. I'm miserable. I'm like, I'll just buy pipes. I don't give a shit. But
Yeah, the mortar platoon didn't even get you ready for that, right?
no, 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 no. The mortar tube weighs 35 pounds. This shit's like 250 pounds, right? I'm trying to figure out how to do this, and I got an air hammer in the end, chiseling out, but I can only get that deep into. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. But anyway, so I'm standing on top of the concrete pump, and our mechanic was in the shop, and we had a radio in the shop like most mechanic shops do. It's on loud, and I can hear it. And guy's name's Jim, raging alcoholic, great guy, but that's all he did was turn wrench. He could fix anything on those concrete pumps, and he'd been doing this 30 years. But he'd also been drinking a case of beer at work for 30 years. But just an awesome dude. He turned around to me and he's like, "Jeremiah." And I turned around, I said, "What's up?" He goes, "Come here now." I'm like, "Oh shit, now what, dude? What the fuck?" I didn't do anything inside the shop, so I know. And he goes, "Listen." And we were listening. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning. It was right after, I think it was shortly after the second plane had hit, whatever time that was. And he goes, "Dude, I think the terrorists attacked New York City." And I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And so there was a TV inside of my boss's office, and she had it on, and she's crying. And I'm like, "What the fuck is going on? What was going on?" And so cell phones, 98, about that had come out. This is 2001. I had a cell phone. We all had Nextels, the little chirping ones. And dudes were chirping off the Nextels, and they're like, "Hey, you guys, America's under attack." And I'm like, "What the fuck is?" Now I'm a Marine. I'm an infantry Marine, and I was always kind of bummed out that I'm 7 years into my career, and if you're an infantry Marine, you want to go to combat. I mean, that's all you care about is going to combat. And everybody's like, "What the fuck would it?" And later, I changed my mind about all this. But trust me, we'll get into it. We'll get into it later on. But dude, that's all you just want to go to the show. Otherwise, it's like going to fucking football practice every day and never playing in a game.
Never playing a game.
Yeah, and obviously my attitude about that changed later on. But it is what you feel. And so for me, I'm listening to this,
Well, you want to be
and
tested.
I'm getting like. I'm watching this on TV, and dude, I'm getting a little emotional about it now. I'm getting fucking angry. I'm getting fucking angry. Like so I'm like, I gotta go. And Michelle's like, "You need to go. You need to go and check with your unit. Check with your unit." Because they all know I'm a Marine. So I go, I was living at my cousin's Calvin's house at the time, and I had all my shit. And all my shit was in a sea bag still. I was doing the sea bag drag. I moved out of my dad's house. I'm kind of in transition. He needed a roommate. I'm like, "Cool, I'll be your roommate." We're like 5 days apart, him and I, so we go out and hang out together. And I come flying up in the driveway, and I come inside, and he's standing at the couch with the remote in his hand watching this. And he goes, "Dude, you're going to war." And I go, "You're fucking right." I was like, "Oh shit." And I had no clue what was, I didn't know where I'm going. Who knows what I'm doing. But me personally, I'm getting my shit, and I feel like I'm getting on a plane and I'm going to war. And
When
so
so, hold on. 9/11 hits. You
yeah,
witness it. You're a reservist infantryman.
yeah.
You're in a squared away unit. What happened?
I'd give us 60%.
More of a squared away unit than when you
Yeah,
arrived.
for sure, for sure.
What was your notification to get your ass to Grand Rapids?
We didn't have one. It never
Really?
happened.
Really?
Nope. And that was, and so yeah, I'm there. Dude. I'm putting camis because I got shit everywhere. I'm putting camis. Hey, I need 3 sets. I'm packing like when back when I was on active duty, we had what we called
I don't know
alpha
what's
alerts.
happening, but god damn it, something's happening.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, sorry. So back when I maybe got too animated. So
Shock.
started a buffer. Yeah, right. It started a buffer. Like slow down, how. So when I was on active duty, we had this thing called Alpha Alert. So each infantry battalion was on an alert status, and it was different grades of alert. And so if you were an Alpha Alert, you were like you're on like a strip. You're on like you couldn't go outside of a 72 or 96 perimeter. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
I
guys had
remember the
that kind of.
maps, man. Like it was a
Yeah, the
big map, and they
circles.
had circles, right, going all
Yeah,
around. And you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Do I gotta like Gunny know we're going?"
Right.
You're like, "No, that's good. I'll come up with an
Yeah.
excuse if I get caught outside the wire."
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yep, exactly. So during that, so I'm packing. I'm at my cousin Calvin's house, and I'm packing like I'm on fucking Alpha Alert, and we're getting activated. And I kind of knew I had been in the reserve long enough to kind of know what's going on. So I took it up, So I start calling. I called Rob and I called Ken. I'm like, hey, any word? They're like, no, this shit's fucking wild though. I wouldn't doubt it if we end up somewhere overseas, like in the next couple days. I'm like, fuck yeah, bro, let's get after it. So I'm motivated. I'm ready to go. No phone call. Like, so we actually drill was coming up like next week, the next weekend too. So we all pile into the drill deck. Everybody calls it, and I had just gotten promoted to sergeant, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Yeah, I'd just been promoted to sergeant. And, so now I'm the platoon sergeant of weapons platoon. And we get in there and everybody's congregating, and here comes the first sergeant, calls everybody to attention, report, all present or accounted for, 1 UA, whatever the fuck it was. And all right, school circle on me. So we all go in, typical Marine Corps fashion. Hey, gents, listen. Everybody's seen what happened in world events. I know everybody's worried about what's going to happen. We haven't heard anything yet. And dude, that went on for months. We haven't heard anything yet. We haven't heard anything yet. We haven't heard anything yet.
Did you believe him?
Um, at our company level, yeah. Did I believe that the inspector instructor was having meetings with the inspector instructor at the battalion level, who's having regimental meetings, who's having, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, knowing what I know now, and having been in so long, I know how that stuff goes. And you don't pass word, don't pass word unless it's the word, right? Because you don't want to create dissension in the ranks with we're going, we're not going, we're going, we're not going. That's a big deal. I mean, it's a huge deal.
Well, unless it's confidence too, right?
Right. Yeah. 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 Exactly. And you're going to lose confidence in your staff when you say, "Hey, we're going. We're not going. We're going." And before like, fuck it, it's the boy who cried wolf. And so now I'm not taking it seriously. So over the next year, nothing happened. But nothing happened.
A whole year.
There weren't even. Yeah, there weren't even rumors, dude. Not even rumors of something happening. So, and obviously Afghanistan's going now. They'd already started kicking off some stuff. It's mostly, it's the Delta guys and the SOG and soft guys that are getting after it, and they're doing their thing. And you hear little blurps and stories coming out, and you're getting some after action reports of the ground units that are starting to trickle into Afghanistan. But it's kind of like, so now, and Iraq was unheard of at this time. So now this is middle 2002. Well, what do we start doing? Well, we don't have mountains in Michigan that we can train on, really. I mean, we could go to the UP, but how are we going to change because again, now we're putting together training plans. How are we going to curtail our training to this global war on terror in the mountainous regions of fucking Afghanistan? And it was difficult. So, hey, and we're, everybody's, and then so the internet's a little bit now, you can get on the internet and start looking at maps and shit. So we're looking up maps, and we're getting maps from regiment of Afghanistan. Hey, let's start putting together terrain features. Let's do anything we can. But we couldn't do anything, man. It was
In the
just we're
woods,
largely
in the woods, in the plains of the Midwest.
yeah, yeah. And so I was like, hey, listen, we can't recreate terrain, but we can certainly recreate situations that are going to fuck us up. Casualties. I mean, the first thing I thought about was casualties, and I'm thinking in that terrain, dude. I can't even fucking imagine carrying a litter in the mountains. Like I get it. We're to do litter carries out in the fucking parking lot for 50 yards, and dudes are passing out near. I'm like, there's, come on. adrenaline, I might get an extra 150 meters out of you.
Yeah.
But so what? So now I'm like, hey, let's focus on conditioning. Let's focus on conditioning. Let's focus on hiking. Let's focus on carrying heavy shit.
At 600 feet
Um,
sea level, that Michigan is.
right, exactly, and that's the other. We can't you can't recreate that. But we started coming up with different things, and I started one of the things we were training, and I think we were out in Battle Creek, Michigan, at Fort Custer, and I had a corpsman with me who had came from the he would come from the fleet. He has the FMF pin. So, here's a dude that's got a little bit more experience and whatnot. He's a go-getter. Love the dude. He's a cop up in Muskegon. And we're doing land nav. We're patrolling through, and I'm just overseeing it. I'm letting the corporals run it. I'm the platoon sergeant at the time, and we're going through. And I grabbed this kid, and I said, "Come here." And he goes, "What's up, sergeant?" And I said, "Hey, go down on the ground right now." He's like, "What?" I said, "Go get on your back on the ground right now." He goes, "Okay." And I said, "All right." And I didn't. I just told him what you have. I said, you've got a fractured left femur, and you've got a neck injury. Don't know what it is." And I yelled at him. I said, "Yo!" I said, "Hey, man down!" And he turned around. His kid's name was Brule, Corporal Brule. On the him. He's kind of a strange bird, but he was a good dude. He became an officer later, actually. But Brule, I put him on the ground, and Corpsman comes around, and first Marine that gets there, he's like, "Corpsman up, Corpsman up." So they start doing their assessments. They're feeling what's wrong with him. I said he's got a fractured left femur and he's got a neck injury from a fall. I don't know. And so
Figure it out.
immediately, yeah, figure it out, bro. And so the corpsman looks at me and he goes, "Well, Sergeant, what I would do is," and I looked at him, I go, "What do you mean what you would do?" I said, "Dude, don't tell me what you're gonna do. Fucking do it." And he goes, "Well, we need to put a neck brace on him." I said, "Do it." So he's directing the lance corporal that's staying at the kid's head. Hey, don't move him, don't roll him left or right. And he's explaining why as he's doing it. So he's teaching the purpose behind not moving him. Now he's Sam splitting up his leg. He's we got duct tape. He's rigger taping the fuck out of this dude's leg and shit. And I go, "All right, now what?" And he goes, "Let's get a litter." So we had litters with us and stuff in case. And get a litter. I said, "All right, anything else you would do before we move him?" He goes, "Well, I'd probably start an IV." I go, "You'll probably fucking do nothing. Do it." And he goes, "You want me to start an IV on him? Like a real IV?" And I go, "Yes." so
Yeah.
so he does, he plugs him, and so Brule's like, his eyeballs get really big. I'm like, "It's just a needle, bro." I said, "And besides, you'll be hydrated. Don't worry about it." So he puts a saline bag on him, and I sent those pictures to you. So I'm holding the saline bag. We hook it up, and I'm like, "All right, what's next?" I said, "First of all, what should have we been doing this whole time?" And the team leader's like, "Oh, we probably should have called for a Casevac or Medevac." I said, "Boom." I said, "You got your strip out, get your 9 line going." So he starts calling it back, and he starts calling it, and I hear him, and I go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." I said, "Make sure you let him know it's training." so,
Oh, yeah,
and
no
so he
shit.
goes, "Yeah." He's like, "Check, check, check. Belay my last. Training, training, training," or whatever the hell we said for train. He goes, "This is a training exercise or exercise, exercise, exercise." He's like, he starts reading the 9 line, and whoever was on radio watch on the other side, I hear this mumbling, and I'm like, "What'd they say?" They said they want you on the radio. So I grabbed the radio, like whatever I was, Alpha 4 Actual, whatever the hell I was at the time. Alpha 4 Actual Go. And it's the company gunny on the other end. It's the inspector instructor company gunny. And he like plain as day, and you know how radio traffic goes, especially in the Marine Corps, it's all rigid and everything. He goes, "What in the hell is going on?" And I said, "Oh, hey," I said, we're doing an exercise. I got him, we got an IV running. We got a exercise, fractured left femur on a 22-year-old male, blah, 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 last four this, blood type this, and a neck injury. We're not sure. We're not moving him. I said, "I need a medevac at this grid coordinate. We'll move to your position when you get here. Or you can move in with a litter." So anyway, they show up. Dude, I got my ass chewed. What the fuck are you thinking? Like, okay, it's one thing to say he's got an injury and then call Endex and then walk out. It's another when you got a fucking corpsman. Wait, he said wasting an IV bag for a training exercise. And I'm looking at this dude, and I'm looking at him like,
What the
in my
fuck?
mind, I'm thinking, "Are you fucking?" But he's a gunny, and I'm a sergeant, so I'm like, "Roger that, gunny." And he's like, "Just fucking get everybody loaded up in the Humvee. Let's go." So we get back, and I got called over to the head shed, company headquarters, which is a little fucking bivouac area. And they're not making me stand at attention or anything, but they're chewing my ass. Like, "Who told you to do this? blah, 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 blah. And finally, I just had enough. I'm like, fuck this. I'm a sergeant. I'm done with this shit. Like, what are you gonna do to me? Like, oh, and I just reenlisted, by the way. So I'm like,
Oh, there's a lot they can do to you.
what are you gonna do to me? Make me stay another 3 years and come to weekend drills? Like, nothing's going. I didn't give a shit. And I'm like, hold on a second. And I did the whole "with all due respect, sir" type thing. I said, I don't know if anybody else has recognized this or not, but we don't do any realistic fucking training here. Every single thing we do gets called index before anything actually would fucking happen in a real scenario. Everything.
Before it gets taken to its what's the term we like to use now?
Logical conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not. And I said, none of this is. And I said, we don't know what the fuck. Yeah, okay, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. No, we're not going anywhere. Until tomorrow, we are fucking going somewhere. And sure, we're going to have a workup and deployment, but why not use this time wisely? It's a fucking IV bag. I said, I'll buy you guys a fucking IV bag. And I turned around and walked away. And everybody just silence. I was expecting to get the fuck back here. Nobody said a word. And then
that means it was effective.
Yeah, and I hope so. And I'd hope so. And I felt bad. And so now I walk away and I feel bad. I walk away and I feel bad. Like, I was very disrespectful to the chain of command. I was very that wasn't professional at all. So I waited, I don't know, it was a couple hours, chow time, because it's getting evening. We're about to bivouac out for the night. And I walked back over to the first sergeant. I said, hey, first sergeant, you got a second? He's like, yeah, what do you need? He's a big old country boy. This is a retired Sergeant Major Baum. And I said, you got a second? He says, let's go for a walk over here. So we go walking out of ear's range. And he's looking at me real seriously. And I said, first of all, I apologize to you. I don't apologize to those fucks and the I&I staff. I said, but I apologize to you. And he goes, you don't need to apologize to me. You did exactly what you should. And he gave me this whole rundown. And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you fucking say something? Why didn't you say something? But he's like, no, I wanted you to say what you had to say. And if they would have gotten your shit, I would have told them to stand down. And I'm like, well, I appreciate it. And he goes, keep doing what you're doing. He goes, keep doing what you're doing. You mean well. You're a good Marine. He says, you're going to fuck some things up. You're going to make some decisions that maybe shouldn't have been made or somebody doesn't like. But if you're making them for the right reasons. And dude, that gave me that was invigorating to me. And I was like, hey, I'm on the right track now.
Well, it was a green light to keep going on, right? It was a green light to keep being you.
Yeah. And a lot of situations like that, even with our job, you get your ass chewed like that, and it can go either way. It can really, you and I both have worked with people, like, they get their ass chewed, whether they deserved it or not. A lot of times they do. Fuck this place, fuck this, and you lose them. And I wasn't that type. I wasn't going to be lost by that. I wasn't going to be deterred by that. But, I think that was their concern. It was like, oh, shit. Well, here was a decent NCO, at least in my mind. There's a decent NCO, and maybe he's going to be a career Marine now, and he comes from active duty. He's got some experience, and now we just fucked him over. I think that's where the silence came from, I think. I think they thought that. But I didn't think that. I just...
Right.
Whatever.
All right, man. So we're going to start talking about your first deployment during a time of war. So let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then and then we'll come back to that.
Yes, sir.
Vehicle taking fire on primary and secondary